All right, welcome to the final leg of this journey. It's been quite the ride, but all of these things had to be documented so that now when we look at current events, you have the right eyes to see what you need to see. In order to understand the future, you have to understand the past. History is a second witness to Bible prophecy. God has given us an amazing, amazing word through Daniel, through Revelation, through 2 Thessalonians, through Matthew 24, Luke 21, all of these various texts. But without history and a proper understanding of history, we can't understand these words properly. God is sovereign over time and space. And so history is the second witness, and we have to know our history. And now you do. You can see who is behind the revolutions, the dialectics, the false signs and wonders. And you can see what the goal of all of these things is. And of course, we are at the very end of the end. On March 7, 321 AD, Constantine, who was the first Pontifex Maximus of both the Christian cult and the Roman government, changed the times and the law by basically changing the order of the week from, the various days that were there to the days that we use today, where Sunday is the first day of the week. And he changed the law in the sense that he proclaimed the first Sunday law to rest on the Venerable Day of the sun. Now, that first law wasn't completely prohibitory. It had some exclusions. It wasn't, super prohibitory for some people. Like if you were in agriculture, you didn't have to. But nevertheless, within 150 years, Christians were being persecuted and told not to Judaize. Don't Judaize, otherwise you'll be shut out from Christ. And of course, you know what happens to people who are shut out from Christ. Most people do not know the history of Sunday and Sunday laws. They think that these kind of things are crazy. It's absolutely crazy to think that there's going to be a Sunday law that will control your, resting and behavior. But history tells a different story. So far, we haven't talked about various examples of Sunday laws, but I defer you again to number 8 in my Sabbath series, where I cover 2,000 years of those Sunday laws throughout history. So you can see this is not just a conspiracy theory or some wild idea that people are pulling out of their hats. It's based in history, because that is the way that the beast will receive worship. Today, these things are moving faster and faster, and it will soon be a very ubiquitous part of the culture to rest on Sunday. You need to understand the trajectory of history with the image of the beast, with the false prophet, with the beast itself, and how all of this is shaping up to fill the Bible's words in the very next decade. You need to warn people and to educate them, show them the evidence. I've belabored to give you more and more evidence as much as possible, as much as humanly possible, so that you have the evidence yourself and you can go give it to other people. So in this section, I want to look at some recent headlines and apply everything that you've learned in the last 6 sections. For my ongoing news coverage, see my Venerable Day of the Sun playlist. I'm going to be doing Venerable Day of the Sun series on an ongoing basis. I don't have a schedule for them, like in the sense like I do them once a week or something like that. I just do them as things accumulate. So this is kind of like another version of that. Right now at the time of this video, I just finished number 8, Bread in the Circuses, a couple weeks ago. And so this will be kind of like an 8.5 before the next one. Either way, this will be like a Venerable Day of the Sun episode. So I cover this stuff as much as I can. But again, my goal is not to be first with the news or to be, oh, look at this intriguing story. My goal is to use the happenings of the news to illustrate a very important point, which is to help you see how the Bible is being fulfilled and to think critically so that then you, who have discernment, can go and interpret the news yourself. To me, that is a much more effective use of my time and yours to teach you how to interpret the news rather than being the latest with the latest intrigues or whatever else, because there's never ending intrigues. There's never ending bread and circuses. So there's a couple sections in this particular part of the presentation. The first one is the echo chamber. Part of Satan's matrix has always been to create an echo chamber, because an echo chamber reinforces the religio-political mentality of worshiping the beast. And of course, from Babylon to modern day, you always had a primary source of the shaping of the culture. In Assyria, it was the mistress of witchcraft. It was Nineveh. Then it was Babylon. Then eventually it was Rome. And now today it's still Rome. And of course, through the false prophet, these things have gone throughout the whole world. Today it's at the maximum because we have so much technology through our phones, through social media and everything else. And so the culture is able to be shaped very quickly. But I want to show you some articles on how the echo chamber is forming rapidly for this new thing, which is really just the old thing. This is from Los Angeles Times. MSNBC ratings collapse post-election. Fox News surges as cable faces an uncertain future. We know the future is, folks. We know the future because the Bible has told us, but the liberal old legacy media is collapsing. Now, people are celebrating that. Oh my gosh, leave me alone. People are celebrating that. But they don't realize that it's just one totalitarian power coming and replacing another. They think that, oh, now we're going to have news that really tells the truth. Really? You think so? When all the news is owned by sovereign military or Knights of Malta, the Jesuits, and the papal institution? I don't think so. Here's another one. CNN's Van Jones frets Fringe has replaced mainstream media. We're on... This one always has a seizure every time I go to it. You have to hit escape because I have an ad blocker. We're on cable news getting 1.2 million while they're getting 14 million streams. Stop it. CNN's Van Jones warned on Wednesday that the entire political class in the country is way off when it comes to connecting to voters, as fringe platforms and voices have replaced mainstream outlets like his own network. That's right. Through Trump, what they have accomplished is solidifying the counter-narrative, meaning the new echo chamber. When this one self-destructs, it makes people think that they've achieved a victory over the deep state. They have already constructed the opposing echo chamber, meaning the new pen. Okay, sheep, go into this pen. Let me make the new pen for you. And then once we can self-destruct this pen, we move the sheep from one pen to another. It's still in the pen. You're still in the pen. You're still in Plato's cave. You're just in a different color wall. But that's what's happening. And people think it's, a sign of that the deep state has been conquered. Here's another one. Biden offers grim Thanksgiving message, warns journalists of tough job ahead fighting alternative media. So yeah, there is a tough job for the left, but the left is with the right. This is all just Jesuit theater. No, I don't continue without disabling. How about that? Ring-kissed Dem lawyer tears into obedience of ABC News settling Trump defamation suit with knee bent. This is from December 14th. High-profile Democratic attorney Mark Elias blasted ABC News on Saturday evening after the network settled a defamation lawsuit that was filed by President-elect Donald Trump. Elias posted on social media he viewed the settlement as a sign that yet another media outlet was waving the white flag regarding Trump. The network apologized to Trump over comments network anchor George Stephanopoulos made earlier this year during a Sunday morning interview with Nancy Mace. Stephanopoulos said numerous times Trump had been adjudicated of rape while referring to the E. Jean Carroll civil sexual abuse lawsuit, which she won. Trump sued for defamation, arguing the anchor made demonstrably false remarks with actual malice or with a reckless disregard for the truth. Saturday afternoon, ABC News issued the following apology to Trump and agreed to pay him $15 million to settle the suit. This is what they do, folks. This is so brilliant. If you understand what's happening here, they're basically just taking power, putting their own echo chamber in, and people are cheering it on, thinking that it's justice. Same thing from Mediaite. Trump threatens CBS, Bob Woodward, and Des Moines Register. We have to straighten out the press. What does this remind you of, folks? What does it remind you in the last 100 years, at least, if you know your history? We got to straighten out the press. President-elect Donald Trump took questions from the press on Monday and promised a bevy of new lawsuits against media organizations in the wake of his settlement with ABC News, which saw the network pay out some $15 million and issue an apology. Now, what does it mean? I agree. The press should be straightened out, and they should do things by integrity and free journalism and free speech and speaking the truth, because that's what journalism is. But again, I defer you back to the common good. Who determines what the common good is? Who determines what it means to straighten out the press? What does that mean? Well, if you just mean it like in a normal sense, then yeah, I agree. The press should be straightened out because it's nothing but lies. It breathes out lies constantly. But Trump doesn't mean straighten out the press. Trump means make the press Catholic, because Trump is a Catholic Jesuit pawn. He's working for the papal power, meaning straighten out means go along with this new narrative that we're going to be putting on society and creating the image of the beast. Oh, this is from Daily Beast. Trump target Neil Cavuto to leave Fox News after 28 years. Fox News anchor Neil Cavuto will leave the network at the end of the year, ending a 28-year tenure that made him a stalwart of its programming and a target of Donald Trump's wrath. His last appearance on Fox News will be Thursday, where he will say goodbye to his viewers on Thursday's Your World. The network offered Cavuto 66 a new deal, according to a Fox News source, but he opted to leave instead. Trump bashed Cavuto in September as one of the worst on television after Cavuto said he lost the debate with Kamala Harris, writing on Truth Social that he would actually prefer the losers at CNN and MSNBC. After Cavuto chastised Trump in 2020 for promoting the hydroxychloroquine as COVID-19 treatment, Trump went on a Twitter tirade against him and claimed Fox had more anti-Trump people by far than ever before. Looking for a new outlet, he wrote to supporters. Does this seem like history's repeating to you if you know your history? Like, let's say World War II, World War I, other places, China. Does it seem like history's repeating? Mark Zuckerberg went from Mr. Steal Your Data to Mr. Steal Your Girl. So he went from dark to light. Look at this. These people just play their parts, folks. They play their parts. And initially he looked like a lizard man. Now he's like a player. Now he's, riding and surfing with the American flag. He's meeting with Trump. And he's Mr. Conservative. He's got to look the part. Mark Zuckerberg dines with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Meta boss Mark Zuckerberg has visited Donald Trump at his resort in Mar-a-Lago, further evidence of the apparent thawing in their once frosty relations. Yeah, this is a ruse, folks. People play their parts, and now it's time for him to play a different part. Or else. Apple CEO visits Mar-a-Lago, joining list of tech executives seemingly courting Trump. Of course, everybody's going to come and court Trump because they're ready to integrate the image of the beast. Musk declares that he owns everyone's Twitter account, X to become most censored social media platform in the world. Let's see. Elon Musk, hailed by MAGA supporters as the champion of free speech, reminded the world today that he owns everyone's X account, as his attorneys filed a claim in court today stating that The Onion, which is trying to purchase the media empire of Alex Jones, cannot take control of Alex Jones and the InfoWars Twitter accounts because Elon Musk and X owns everyone's account on the social media platform and not the users who create those accounts. Of course, Musk doesn't care about you, folks. He doesn't care about your free speech. Musk's goal, he admitted that he wanted to make an app just like in China. The Everything app, where you can pay, you can do everything, just sign on the dotted line. Well, wait a minute. What does that mean if that was the case and Musk is successful, which he probably will be, to make X into an app that just you can do everything on, just like in China, just like, WeChat or whatever it's called. But Musk admits to you that you don't own that account. What does that mean? I mean, in terms of Bible prophecy, what does that mean? Just simple question. One more here from the BBC. Trump nominates Bessent to lead U.S. Treasury in flurry of announcements. Donald Trump has nominated Scott Bessent to lead the U.S. Treasury Department, one of the most influential roles in government with wide oversight of tax policy, public debt, international finance, and sanctions. The selection ends what has proven to be one of the most protracted decisions for the president-elect as he assembles his team for a second term. Bessent, a Wall Street financier who once worked for George Soros, ding, 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 was an early backer of Trump's 2024 bid and brings a relatively conventional resume to the role. Yeah, relatively conventional, i.e. part of the deep state swamp that Trump promises to kick out, which of course all he's doing is making it bigger. So there's that for that one. What can we take from that one? Well, there's a lot that we can take, hopefully, from all of the history that you now have under your belt. Every tyrannical power in history always controls the echo chamber, folks. Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Mao, all of the people in history who have ever come to power, they always fire the previous media, free press is done away with, and they put their own people in to create the echo chamber. Now, this time around, it's not as obvious. Do you get it? It's not as obvious because they use the dark to light agenda to make you think that we've conquered the bad guys, so now it's the good guys that are in control. That's the point, but it's the same tactic. They're just replacing everybody and creating their own echo chamber. Trump did not clean out the swamp, as he so called it. He made it bigger. All of the people around him are puppets, and they're controlled by the same Synagogue of Satan. Everyone is done playing their opposing parts. Now let's meet at Mar-a-Lago. Let's kiss the ring. All the media, stations are bowing down, and so on. During Trump's term, the media didn't seem to care about libel or defamation or anything else, even when he was actually president. Now suddenly everybody's playing nice and retracting their fangs and paying, for lawsuits and coming back down and folding their ears. Suddenly everybody's playing nice. Remember that the occult world runs on blackmail. It runs on constant betrayal. Read The Art of War, all the various spies that are in there. The ones who don't flip and change to the new thing get sued because they basically allowed them to attack Trump. That was the point. Remember, spies are they're puppets of the Jesuits. When the Jesuits don't need a spy anymore, they let them die. They betray them. It's not like it's a system based where everybody has a knife at each other's throat. It's a very schizophrenic system. So they baited these news companies to attack Trump, because that was the agenda at the time, so that then they could blackmail them and have them under the control of Trump through all these lawsuits now that are coming through. And of course, they're going to bow the knee and the new echo chamber can be formed. Very easy. Very simple. They basically guaranteed controlling the new echo chamber on a level that probably we haven't seen in this nation's history. And of course, people are cheering it on because the fake news media is getting destroyed and sued. But your other replacement of the fake news is coming, folks. Sure, it looks more clean cut, and they're not talking about Trending Time Story Hour, but it's still fake news. It's always going to be a spin on something, and that spin is going to be Catholic. So this is just from one propaganda to another. CIA Project Mockingbird has not come to an end. It has been fulfilled. Did you get it? Project Mockingbird was to basically get all of these agents in the news to be agents and to create a particular narrative to where nothing where the American citizen believes is true anymore. And of course, that's the goal. That's the goal, and that goal will be fulfilled in Trump's administration. That's for sure. And of course, you remember the CIA is full of Knights of Malta members and so on. But this shows that the echo chamber, the few articles that I showed you, is showing you that the echo chamber is coming to a level worse than anything you ever thought with the liberal media. You thought the liberal media was bad? Journalism, I think, still existed like 20 years ago and 30. Of course, there was always bias in the media. The media has always been controlled. But the echo chamber that's coming is going to be worse than anything you ever saw with the liberals. The difference is going to be that it's going to seem good. It's going to seem right. It's going to seem almost right. And that's going to be the problem. You're going to have this echo chamber constantly telling you things that are partly true, but then twisting them with, of course, a Catholic intention. And the worst part of all of this is that most people will be deceived by it. Most people will approve and, go with this particular system. Now, in line with that, there's also a lot of culture shaping that's happening. And so I've collected quite a few articles here on how they're shaping the culture to bring about this particular thing. I've talked about these things in various episodes. Remember, the Jesuits over the last 500 years are masters of shaping the culture through various things, through various intrigues, infiltrations, theaters, Hollywood, universities. They are masters at shaping the culture. Today, all of these weapons are maximized because of technology, and culture can be shaped extremely quickly. One false flag or event, i.e. like the assassination attempt, plus spreading narratives on social media, having influencers chime in. What used to take 80 to 150 years can now happen overnight. Do you understand how meaningful that is? With all of the ways that people are bombarded and you're connected to your phone, how they can shape culture immediately. What used to take decades can now happen in months or even less days. That's why I say that things are moving very fast. It's not going to be hard to move people over the edge and into marveling after the beast. It really won't be. It's not going to take 100 years. It's going to take 10 years, I think. That's an educated guess. So let's look at some of these things. This is Benny Johnson, who of course is frothing at the mouth for the new thing. And he says, "I'm stunned. Apple just released the single greatest pro-parenting ad in the history of American advertising. The pro-family culture revolution is here. Watch. Try not to cry."
Got it last week.
I think I know what it is. Are you serious? Oh, guys, thank you. The color that you wanted. How did you know this is
I got the moon.
John, listen.
Light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
He's so excited. Here you go, Haley.
Happy birthday. at the moon. Daddy, take away I am a robot. What is that?
See ya.
Everything is easy 'cause of
I love you. Papa.
you.
Now, before you get your emotions going, you're going to have to be able to look at something like this and see why it's evil. And I mean that very seriously. From the Children's Crusades to all the way to the modern day, it's always putting the children first, because children are innocent. And when you put the children first, people are letting their guards down and could be very easily manipulated. What is the programming of this particular advertisement? And of course, now Apple, going from woke to conservative, meeting with Trump, now they're playing the game on the opposite spectrum. What is the programming of this particular ad? The programming is Christmas, which, by the way, we all know is a pagan holiday, enforces the beast's religious behavior. Sunday time spending with family. Of course, the beast doesn't care about your family whatsoever. But the beast is going to be about your family. It's about the family because the family can be very easily manipulated into observing Sunday sacredness. If mom and dad do it, or if just the dad does it. In fact, there's a lot of studies that show what the spiritual beliefs of the husband influence the rest of the family. But either way, if you have somebody in the family, or two or three, then you can get everybody else. So the beast is going to rescue you from the atheistic, communistic paradigm that is against the family, and provide you with the solution of warm and cuddled snuggies with your children and presents, so you can spend that family time on Sunday, just like everybody else. This is how evil this is. It's almost right, folks. There's a lot of almost right here. And of course, taken out of context, and we just look at this as a normal situation, yeah, it's a very touching story of a man who didn't have a way to hear his daughter, and now he can finally hear. What a touching story. But it's not in the right context. The context is this is designed to program you with a particular outcome. And unless you see that programming, you cannot see the coming delusion. Because the coming delusion is going to be a lot of this kind of stuff that's going to seem so good, so rational, so clean cut, it's going to make so much sense in context of all that evil, communistic stuff. And yet it's going to be the final evil to overcome. So Benny Johnson, totally into the new thing, and of course has no discernment whatsoever. This is also from Instagram. Trump magic crystal ball. President Predicto. Will your future be great again? Ask President Predicto. Do you realize what this is? Like when Hitler came to power, and it was a cult of personality around, oh, what is the Fuhrer going to say? What does the Fuhrer think about this? Why is President Trump on a Predicto ball and it's a kid's toy? This is just weird, weird stuff. This is shaping the culture with a cult of personality and fascism. No different. If you know your history, this is no different. This is from Zero Hedge. Massive Trump fight statue under construction. They love their statues, folks. This is how they immortalize spiritual movements. An Ohio artist has been commissioned to create 2-story-high bronze statue of President Trump in the iconic pose he's drunk after surviving the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. Here's the picture, and of course he's going to make this giant statue immortalizing Trump, and the Fuhrer is coming to power, and we can all bow down to the Fuhrer and his noble fight against the, bourgeoisie. This is no different, folks. This is no different when they erected statues of Stalin or Mussolini or Mao or any of these people, the noble hero who came to save us from the evils of the whatever the enemy was at the time. How is this any different? And of course, people are cheering it on because Trump saved us from the deep state. The father of the vaccine saved us from the deep state. This is Russian police raid several gay bars and nightclubs in Moscow under laws banning LGBT propaganda. Let's see, what do you think? Now, this is in Russia, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen around the world. Right now, there's a shift. There's a shift back into hardcore religiousness. If you understand the history of the last 2,000 years, especially with the Roman Catholic Church, you understand where we are going. These are just signs of coming things, folks. Once the Jews are converted, once the liberals are put under the bus, once the homosexuals have been put under the bus, what do you think the last group of people that is going to be treated like this? It's going to be you and me as Sabbath-keeping Fennec Fox Christians that understand their history, that know who the Synagogue of Satan is. They're going to be persecuted. That is what the Bible warns you of. And these are just signs. These are just signs of that shift back towards religion, back towards traditionalism, and away from the atheistic experiment, which has done its job. It's done its job. This is from Media Matters. Heritage President Kevin Roberts, there's no doubt that Trump will implement Project 2025. He's very confident. I wonder why. I wonder why he's so confident. Kevin Roberts says, and if so, if there's anyone who understands how you legally, appropriately, and aggressively use the office of management and budget to do the will of the American people rather than the will of Washington elites, it's Russ Vought. Freddie Sires. A lot maybe of the Project 2025 agenda may now actually happen no matter what the candidate was saying. Is that fair? Roberts. It is fair, and there's no doubt that it will happen. No doubt in his mind that's going to happen. I don't mean that with any disrespect to President Trump, whom he knows who is a friend, but just to say there's so much overlap between President Trump's official campaign platform, Agenda 47, and the policies in Project 2025. That's what I mean when I say that this is sort of boring in one sense, because it's not newsworthy that the Republican candidate for president would be, saying many, if not most, of the same things that the conservative movement itself would be saying. There is no doubt that Trump is going to do what we tell him to do. That's reading between the lines. That's what you should read here. Kirk Cameron aims to reinvent kids' TV with biblical values, debuts Adventures with Iggy and Mr. Kirk. Let's reinvent kids' TV now from going woke to talking about the Bible. Hey, kids, you got to rest on Sunday because that's what the Lord's Day is. Are you kidding me? This is what's coming, folks. It's going to seem really right. Again, putting the kids first. You got to remember, the devil is the most subtle creature that God has ever made. It's very clever. Very, very clever. And after the kids, I feel so bad. I mean, it's just, it's so sad. It's so sad because they sacrifice these kids to this transgender ideology. They sacrifice them. So many kids got gender reassignment surgery and then they got it, undone, and now they're speaking up against it. So many kids have been ruined. They've been ruined for what? For the fact to justify this switch from dark to light, to justify the flip, so that now they can put the kids in front again and say, look, we're doing it for the kids. We're getting Christian values back in the Bible, back in schools or whatever, putting the Bible back in schools, back on TV. Put the kids first. So the kids have always been sacrificed for the beast. You get it? Since the beginning of time, the kids have always been the target. So sad. And now they're using the kids to bring back biblical values and adventures on TV. I wonder what those adventures are going to be like. I really wonder. Of course, you know the answer with the answer. Here's another culture shaping. Christmas season has always been my favorite time of the year. It's the season that we get to celebrate the birth of our Lord. We celebrate together the truth that God has so loved the world that he gave his only son. Gwen Stefani. Now, Gwen Stefani supposedly came out as Christian. Who knows what kind of Christian she is. But if you know from as little as 10 years ago, 11 years ago, whatever it was, this is from, 12, 13 years ago, actually, how she attended the Abramovich's La Mocha Gala performance. And you can look at that yourself. It's very graphic. But basically, I think we're going to leave. My friend fainted sign up for, basically, we're going to leave. What are these Mocha Galas? Well, Marina Abramovich does something called spirit cooking. And she cooks these cakes. She bakes these cakes that are basically these nude copies of this person's body, and everybody eats out of it like they're eating her. It's really, really just disgusting and weird, because this is designed to show that the person has gone through the initiation of mortification. They have died. Just like the Bible says you're dead to your old self when you're born again. It's a counterfeit. These secret societies use a counterfeit. You're dead. Now you're dead, and now you have this new identity. So it's the same thing. And of course, if you read it, Gwen Stefani Sand's husband, Gavin, was a standout and perhaps the centerpiece of this precursor to the evening's big event, which is to say dinner. Gwen Stefani had her body basically done up by this Abramovich so that everybody could partake of her corpse. So now, that was 13 years ago. A lot can change in that time. But Gwen Stefani coming out as a Christian now in perfect timing seems very dubious to me. It's just another instance of culture shaping. And okay, you did your part on the dark. Now you got to do your part on the light. If you don't want to play ball and flip and do as you're told as a spy, then you're going to be sacrificed because there's blackmail material on both sides. You'll be killed, whatever else. So this is the way things go, folks. But we will find out. Only God knows the heart. Nevertheless, I'm very suspicious. This is from X, the redheaded libertarian. Mariah Carey relinquished Queen of the Christmas to that title to the Virgin Mother. Lana Del Rey is a marriage traditionalist. Gwen Stefani came out as Christian. Commercials are becoming family-oriented. There is concern over Christian persecution in Syria. There's something happening here. Yeah, there is something happening here. The Bible tells you what's happening. But most people don't have the lens of Scripture and the lens of history, too. So they're completely enamored by what's happening. They think, oh, what's happening is good. We're going to have a revival. People are coming back to the Bible, to Christianity. Yay! When in fact, the Bible tells you this is the beginning of the end. One more here on Instagram. Never forget. Yeah, never forget. This is very relevant. Pay attention. Oh, snap. Why is this so big? That's interesting.
Vaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem. Period. End of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, but the unvaccinated.
Pay attention to this, because unvaccinated is going to be Sabbath keeper.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
You're basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts and running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free, and so forth.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
The unvaccinated, a group that includes children and people acting like children. And the rest of us are starting to get pissed off.
The vaccinated feel the unvaccinated are making me upset or angry.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
You are the
Folks, this is the old echo chamber, and that old echo chamber is now bowing to the new one. It's not going anywhere. The echo chamber is still here, except it's just switching sides. Now, what's going to happen is that eventually, after all the dialectics are thrown under the bus, like I said, after the Jews are converted, after the liberals are converted, after everybody comes to this new thing, you're going to see the same kind of propaganda against you. Instead of unvaccinated, just put in Sabbath keeper. The Catholic fascist media echo chamber will be pointing its fingers at you. You rebel that denies the common sense of society, that even the law of God. Look, if this is the liberal echo chamber, and they appealed to God and Christianity and sin with the vaccine, how much more do you think they're going to appeal to God and Christianity and the gospel and the Bible and sin when the Catholic echo chamber takes over and controls how people think? When the family values, you're not for family values, are you? You're part of those cults that are legalists and they're trying to tell people to break the law. Are you against the family? All of these things are going to come at you. And instead of unvaccinated, it's going to be Sabbath keeper. The problem is, and the sad part, is that when that does happen, there will be much less people who know the truth compared to the people during these days when the liberal media was talking about the jib jab, who knew the truth about the jabs, who were obviously opposing the mainstream media. The mainstream media was whatever, your fake news. Well, when it happens that the Catholic fascist media empire echo chamber is going to be pointing its fingers at you, my Sabbath-keeping friends, the sad part is most people are going to go along with them. So whatever you experienced in 2020, and certainly it was very frustrating if you knew the truth, multiply that by like 100. That's what's coming. Don't let these dark situations get to you, these dark to light manipulations, schemes. They're shaping the culture more and more with influencers. And of course, all of these things are going to cross over to the new thing. I talk about this in my Jesuit Hollywood episode, in my End Time series, and of course, other news that I've documented with all these Judas goats like Candace Owens, Russell Brand. Like I said, Trump is the greatest Judas goat in history. All of their job is to corner a sector of the market, and then when it's critical time, flip and bring that people into the light, into the new light. These people are secret society members. They played their part, and now they're offered a new station in the coming thing. And again, if they refuse, then they're either blackmailed like P. Diddy or killed or whatever else. They're all Judas goats. They all get some people that follow them, like again with RFK, how he was all against Trump. And then at the last moment, when it was critical momentum, he flips and says, oh, well, that's it. I can't be part of the Democratic Party. Now he's buddy-buddy with Trump. And of course, he's gotten his reward. He brought all of his voters who were on the fence about Trump. They weren't hardcore Trumpists, but they weren't really hardcore for the Democratic Party either. So that needs to be integrated. So you have a Judas goat. So these things work on scheduled times and appointments. And either way, ask yourself, how is any of this different from all of the history that you know about communism, about fascism, about all these empires? How is it any different? How is it any different how they're shaping the culture, making a cult of personality around Trump with statues and little kids' toys and bringing religion into your programming? How is that any different, folks? It's no different at all because it's the same thing. The final thing is the same old thing. It's just a different package. Now, the next section is dialectics. And we'll look at, of course, a lot of places here where they're just these situations that are dialectical in nature, meaning they're problem, reaction, solution oriented. Conflicts, things that are drama, things that are basically making you believe a certain narrative when in fact the goal is to deceive you into the solution. There's a lot of articles here, and we can start with this one from Stu Peters. This is Occupied will be streaming 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. The link to the watch live Occupied. Now, of course, Occupied, what is that? What is the message here? Well, if you see, there's got a little Israeli flag on the White House, and under the Israeli flag, you have the rainbow flags in all the woke agenda and everything else. What does that tell you? It tells you that the Jews are running the world, and because of them, we have all of these, woke agendas that are destroying society. Of course, there's silhouettes of rabbis here watching the White House. What is the message here? What is the message? The message is that the Jews are the ones that we need to get rid of. They're the ones that are causing all these problems against poor, white Christian America that's being crucified by the Jews, the Synagogue of Satan. Do you understand? What's the end of this? The end is to expose the Jews, and that way, when they're converted, the ones who refuse can be persecuted, and the ones who continue to keep the Sabbath on Saturday, on the seventh day, as the Bible tells you, can also be persecuted. Because you can be lumped into all of these mean old rabbis that are just crucifying white Christian America and the body of Christ. That way, there's a precedent. You see, God does everything through precedents. What he does creates a precedent. The devil wants to be God, so he makes artificial conflicts so that he can create a precedent to then later accuse you. This is exactly what this is creating, a precedent. And that precedent has to be noticed. Otherwise, you get sucked into the dialectic of, oh, it's the Jews. It's not the Jews, folks. You know that by now. You know that, hopefully, by now, if you've watched this entire presentation. Oh, here's from Donnie Discerned. Most people cannot fathom the deep state and Trump rivalry is nothing more than a Hegelian dialectic ritual. This is the Great Reset and New World Order darkness, and the Great Awakening, New World Order false light. This is the Masonic darkness to light. Trump is the false savior. And of course, yeah, he has a lot of things he says, but then this guy gets exposed by somebody else as duplicitous. This is Sir Escobar, or Escanor, Hopium Slayer. I told you, Donnie Darkin, nothing changes until you grow a spine and take some accountability. Repent, cuss word. But instead, you go on blocking spree and like some scared little child. So much for being bold and Christian-like. Why do you pretend that you and Candace Owens weren't previously acquainted? Why do you call out satanic and Masonic symbolism in others when you're guilty of the same during the exact same time frame? Is being a Christian Zionist the reason why you always bend over backwards to defend Israel and attack anyone who dares expose the truth about them? I couldn't care less about your drug use or womanizing. That's your problem. But grifting and peddling lies, that's a whole other game. It reeks of Star of David, doesn't it, Mr. Lutchman? You can either take accountability or have it shoved down your throat. This won't end well for you, and you can't hide behind your block button forever. Man up, coward. So he's got a bunch of things he's exposing, the same old stuff. So you have these double, what does it prove to you? That even the people who are giving you some truth are controlled agents. The level of infiltration is beyond anything we can ever imagine. That's why you have to test all things. Everything that I tell you, test it, please. That's why I do these long presentations and videos, to give you ample evidence so you can test everything I say and see whether I'm telling you the truth. Because there is so much infiltration in this world, it's really, truly crazy. This is from The Independent. Labor MPs call for Islamophobia crackdown prompting blasphemy laws and blasphemy law fears. A Labour MP's call for, this is in the UK, for a law to tackle Islamophobia has provoked concerns about Keir Starmer's commitment to freedom of speech. Birmingham Hall Green and Moseley MP Tahir Ali raised the issue of hate crimes against Muslims as part of Islamophobia Awareness Month in November. And of course, they're calling for some sort of legal thing. Hey, there's hate crimes against Muslims. We need to create a blasphemy law or something. And so, of course, what does that mean? Well, you know that Islam is going to convert to the new thing. Islam is on its way out. It is deteriorating very rapidly. But Islam is a great dialectic to bring Europe back to the good old days of the Holy Roman Empire, to push people in this direction, to say, oh, we need to reject this takeover by these barbarians that are raping our women and multiplying so quickly and shoving their religion down the throat. We need to get our Christian roots back. And so this is just a dialectic. And of course, the rules and laws that they pass as a result of the Muslims will end up being applied to you in the end. Blasphemy laws and so on. So just remember that everything serves the agencies of the beast. It's time for global conversation. Let's see, what's this one about? It's so much bread and circuses these days. Oh, it seems that religious, whatever. Here we go.
Just leadership. Talk about vague ideas about tolerance and niceness, and they use buzzwords rather than actual hard-nosed rules.
It's been a little unusual, and I've got outside the church world. I talk about life, forgiveness, having good attitudes, reaching your dreams. Sometimes religion pushes people down.
Christians in America are so biblically illiterate now. They listen to what Joel Osteen says, Creflo Dollar, Kenneth Copeland, and they take it as the message of Christ.
You trust like Joel Osteen? You think he's like a man of his word?
$1,000. You telling me he's not trustworthy?
Regardless of whether you ask, do they send you cash anyway?
People send cash anyway, though. But here's the thing.
I wouldn't lend that guy any money. They're all shysters. Dress is real nice. He talks about Jesus, gets people excited, and they give him their money.
It's so hard for him to get something that's fancy.
Well, all you need to do is start doing like the youth pastor stuff, big stadium deal. Like
Carl Lentz.
Who's I don't want to be in an airplane with a bunch of demons, so I bought me a private jet.
Kenneth Copeland. He asked his followers to help buy a $20 million jet.
He's out of control.
This is about the churches who exploit people's faith for monetary gain.
Church leaders will be like, if you don't tithe, we'll be removed from God's list of people.
Certainly the institutional church has a business aspect. There is a movement to say, we got to get away from this.
So when anyone is speaking for God, and this is what God says, and if you don't give me money, you're off of his list, run the other way.
Sure, yeah.
There's just so much lack of transparency in finances with churches. And the churches that make the most money, it seems like, are the least transparent.
What is your goal? I don't just want to point out a problem.
It seems that religious leadership.
What is this? What is the goal of this? Let's see if you use critical thinking. What is the goal of this to the beast? Because this seems like it's against institutional religion, but this would not be mainstream if that was the case. If it was actually serving that purpose. It serves a different purpose. If you know your history, people like Catherine Kuhlman, who influenced Benny Hinn and all these people, are part of the Jesuit psyop to destroy Protestantism. With the Word of Faith movement, prosperity teaching, that was the first wave of these people. Of course, these people are now getting thrown under the bus and exposed because it's time for them to be basically exposed. And the new wave of young and fresh recruits, like Life Surge with Jonathan Rumi, what's his name, the football player, I forget his name, the famous guy, John 3:16. Anyway, football player, all these people doing speeches, patriots, American entrepreneurship. That's the new wave. It's not as cringy and obviously sleazy as these previous generations. So now it's time to expose these guys so that you look justified providing the solution. That's number one. Number two is it makes Protestantism look ridiculous. It gives a reason to say, you know what? We got to go back to the good old days, back when there was authority and back when, the Pope could tell everybody what to do and everybody follow in line. Of course, they don't know the real history of the Catholic Church, but these types of things make Protestantism look like a scam. This is what happens when you go with the Bible. There you go. See? Everybody interprets it their own way and people get scammed. So that you need the authority of the Pope. That's what these things are for, folks. They accomplish many purposes. And of course, all roads lead to Rome. This is from The Telegraph, The Real Conclave, the secret plotting underway to elect the next Pope. Now, if you've seen the movie Conclave, it's again another instance that the next Pope is coming very soon because they like to telegraph their movements as usual. Very interesting film, of course, if you're watching it from a prophetic perspective. As depicted in the new film, the papal selection process is charged with a secretive gossip and politics behind the scenes. I don't think I highlighted anything on it, but the film itself is just very interesting. Let's put it that way. I won't give it away just in case you want to go watch it, but it is a very interesting film about the new Pope and being selected and what does it mean. There's a lot of symbolism, typical occult nonsense. But again, this is a dialectic. There's a conspiracy against the Pope. Well, first off, the Pope is a Jesuit. He's like part of the masters of conspiracy. The fact that a Jesuit became Pope shows you that the conspiracy has all been well underway for a long time. So there's a conspiracy to oust the Pope. So they're stirring up this dialectic to froth at the mouth the traditional Catholics, the ones that are sedevacantists, who want to see reform in the church. So they're stirring this up. They're stirring the pot. Of course, the Pope is doing a great job at stirring the pot. And you'll see more examples of that as we go. Vatican teeters on the edge of insolvency as donations dry up. December 3rd. Yeah, right. The Vatican faces a severe financial crisis that could threaten its pension fund and future stability. I wonder if this would be a very interesting point going back to our America being the new Rome. I wonder if they're going to dissolve the Vatican in Rome and create a new Vatican in the United States. That thought just came down. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But I really wonder, where is this going to go? Where is this going to go? I don't know. That'd be so fascinating to see. Either way, we know this is a dialectic. At the very minimum, it's designed to set the next Pope up to come in and rescue it, like Trump came and rescued, quote unquote, America, so that the Pope that comes looks like he's the hero. So either way, don't buy into this. The Vatican owns everything. Key facts. The Vatican reported an operating deficit of $83 million in 2023, $5 million more than 2022. Donations from Catholic churches and the public have significantly decreased. The Vatican's pension fund is $631 million in red, raising concerns about future obligations. Pope Francis acknowledged the financial issues, appointed Cardinal Kevin Farrell to oversee the pension fund. The Vatican hopes to boost revenue with the upcoming Great Jubilee in Rome, expected to attract over 35 million per year. And of course, the Vatican is doing a great job of making that Jubilee, which everybody holds so sacred, as being completely woke. You saw the Vatican's mascot, Luce, the light bearer, basically. This woke, weird statue. It's just made by an LGBTQ artist. So they're pushing things to the maximum, man. The radical traditional Catholics are frothing at the mouth for this. And of course, it'll probably be a disaster, which is going to be a perfect opportunity for a revival of the Catholic Church. So we'll see where this goes, but do not buy for 1 minute that the Vatican is going bankrupt. That is the most laughable story of today's report. This is from Metro. Vatican to open 5 sacred portals for once in a quarter century. Of course, people are freaking out about this with the Pope doing his ritual of the various doors. Pope Francis is preparing to unbrick and open 5 sacred portals, symbolizing the doorway to salvation. Jesus said he's the door, you Antichrist. Jesus said he's the door. Remember what the Pope said? Oh yes, Jesus is the door, but there's no way you can walk through that door unless you're led by the hand through the sovereign pontiff. The doors are only open once every 25 years, so they may well be a little rusty. This year, for the first time, one of the doors will be opened in a prison as a sign of inviting prisoners to look to the future with hope. The Pope said in his full bull of benediction announcing this year's ceremony, the tradition dates back to 1300 and the door openings themselves follow a ritual first carried out in 1423. They mark Jubilee years, a concept dating back to the Old Testament when sinners could see their sins forgiven. Well, Jubilee years were every 50 years, not every 25, so that's how you know it's a counterfeit. 2025 is one such year, so if you've got something on your mind, it could be a good time to confess. That's right. promising of forgiveness and golden age. Debt forgiveness probably is going to be part of it. Forgiveness, going back to religion. It's a counterfeit waking up to a counterfeit gospel. Trump threatens 100% tariff on the BRIC bloc of nations if they act to undermine the US dollar. Here's how a perfect taste of how the image is going to be exported to the rest of the world. President-elect Donald Trump on Saturday threatened 100% tariffs against a bloc of 9 nations if they act to undermine the US dollar. His threat was directed at countries in the so-called BRIC alliance, which consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt and Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Malaysia have applied to become members, and several other countries have expressed interest in joining. While the US dollar is by far the most used currency in global business and has survived past challenges to its preeminence, members of the alliance and other developing nations say they are fed up with America's dominance of the global financial system. The dollar represents roughly 58% of the world's foreign exchange reserves, according to the IMF, and major commodities like oil are still primarily bought and sold using dollars. The dollar's dominance is threatened, however, with BRICS' growing share of GDP and the alliance's intent to trade in non-dollar currencies, a process known as de-dollarization. Trump, in a Truth Social post, said, "We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy." Now, let me explain to you really quick how this is going to go, according to what the Bible says. Because all the world will marvel after the beast, and the false prophet is the one that deceives people into building the image. So how does this work into this thing? People say, oh, it's the BRICS is getting this world order. No, what the BRICS alliance is doing, they're using dialectics like they've always done to bring all of these countries, these ragtag countries, these Muslim countries, these pagan countries into one global alliance, one world alliance that then can be manipulated much easier. Do you get it? All these countries are sick of America. They're running to the solution of the BRICS. And of course, Putin and all these people are secret society members, so they're doing the bidding of their papal masters. They're creating the BRICS as a sheep pen for the stragglers to go into. Now everybody's allied, so they are allied, so they have to do certain things according to those documents that govern this entire group of governments. And then Trump is going to fine all of them if they don't go along with the agenda of the United States. That way, they're going to do the bidding of the beast. Do you get it? The BRICS thing is just an illusion. It's just a way to ally all these countries into one pen so they can be manipulated much easier economically. That's exactly what's happening. So, of course, again, all the people at the top don't care because they're just getting their reward for doing their part. Bibi, Putin, Erdogan, all these people are secret society members, folks. Even though on the surface it seems that they're, speaking bad against the US dollar or America or whatever else. It's nonsense. This is from Substack. Gregory Mannarino. Markets. What is about to happen will shock the world by Gregory Mannarino. Financial Dialectics. Let's start with this. The world economy is under attack, and this mechanism will vault risk on assets, stocks, and cryptocurrencies to heights which will leave most people dumbfounded. The mechanism here is simple. We have world central banks colluding directly with selected puppet leaders who are involved in a grand deception. The greatest wealth transfer scheme of all time. Here in the U.S. year to date, the S&P 500 has hit no less than 53 new record highs, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average breaking over 45,000 for the first time ever. And Bitcoin had just recently broke above 100,000. For years, I have explained to those who follow my work that the faster the economy craters, the higher the stock markets will go. It's all smoke and mirrors, folks. Moreover, I have gone on to say that if you are a member of the middle class, you have a tattoo on your face in the shape of a target, and you are being eliminated. That's right, just like our friend over here in this little drawing. The root cause of this grand theft against the world's middle class and therefore the economy stems from the mechanism of artificially suppressed rates. Low artificially suppressed interest rates are massively currency purchasing power negative. A loss of purchasing power is inflationary. However, this same mechanism is highly stock market positive. Who owns most of the stock market? The richest Americans own the vast majority of the U.S. stock market, according to federal data. The top 10% of Americans held 93% of all stocks, the highest level ever recorded. Economics Finance 101. To have a strong economy, you need a strong currency. To have a strong currency, you need a corresponding rate of interest high enough to support the purchasing power of the currency. Currently, The Central Bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve, and the European Central Bank are leading the way to cut rates, with more rate cuts coming. I covered this in one of my previous episodes, which also was these things, when there's rate cuts, these things are signs that there's going to be a collapse. From an economic standpoint, rate cuts and therefore currency purchasing power losses are an economic wrecking ball. However, lower rates and a weaker currency are highly risk-on assets positive, meaning you can expect the stock market to go higher along with cryptocurrencies. Yeah, and everybody's celebrating that, oh, crypto's going crazy. Where's the money coming from? Cash seeks yield. Cash seeking yield means that with the promise of lower rates, cash will continue to flow faster into stocks and cryptocurrencies, with other assets like commodities underperforming. The current market environment guarantees it malinvestment, massive price action distortions, and worsening asset bubbles. Exactly. If you've done anything with crypto in the last 2 or 3 years, you know exactly what that is. So if wealth is being stolen from the middle class, where is it going? You'll find out. Easy money policy, meaning artificially suppressed rates and therefore currency devaluation, not only vaults risk assets higher as it wrecks the economy, but it also creates what is known as the Cantillon effect. The Cantillon effect, an uneven distribution of newly created money within the economy, which leads to redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich. In other words, these things are just Ponzi schemes designed to take your money and give them to people like BlackRock and so on. This is from CNBC. Stock futures are flat after Dow notches longest losing track since 2018. Live updates. We'll see how this goes, but we know that these things are destined to create some sort of collapse so they can introduce their final system. Stock futures inch lower than the Dow Jones Industrial Average registered its longest losing streak since 2018. Futures tied to Dow dipped 60 points. Futures edged down 1.1%, while NASDAQ 100 futures hovered near the flat line. So these things, we'll see again if they manifest into a crisis or another, but maybe they're just milking it more to push people to investing more and more into the stock market, into cryptocurrencies, which again, who owns most of the stock market? The wealthiest people. Who owns cryptocurrencies? BlackRock. If you understand how BlackRock funds all of these crypto projects, and then what's the goal that they get basically in exchange for the funding that they give these venture capital firms to these crypto projects? They get the initial token so they can rug pull initially and take the money out, and they make their money. When everybody puts their money into this token, they're the ones that first sell and they make the money. There's no product. Tokens are just digital money. They're nothing. It's not even money. It's a representation. There's no product. It's just an average. It's a artificial inflation of value. Here's another interesting video on Instagram about the stock market.
What's a coincidence that you think about a lot?
I think about how a lot of the banks that received bailouts back in 2008 were heavily invested in by BlackRock, and that the person that the U.S. government put in charge of managing those bailouts was Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. And also how one of the people who's credited with at least a good chunk of the popularity of subprime mortgage-backed securities, which is the type of investment that caused that collapse in the first place, was Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock. That's a weird coincidence. I mean, it almost would look as if the U.S. government paid Larry Fink to give himself taxpayer money as a reward for destroying the world economy. I mean, it would look that way if it weren't such a coincidence.
If it weren't such a coincidence. Of course, you know these people at the top who they pledged their allegiance to. Elon Musk is on track to become a trillionaire by 2027. Here's why the rich keep getting richer. That's right. Elon Musk doesn't care about you. He cares about his own pocketbook. Jeff Bezos saved around $1 billion in taxes by moving to a billionaire bunker in Florida. Well, there you go. So you should ask Bezos what he did. And of course, the rules always prefer the people in power, not the people at the bottom. These links never work. Okay, here we go. Interesting take. Another interesting take. United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was assassinated in New York City on December 3rd. What the news isn't telling you about this. This is from some forum somewhere, but it's interesting. On February 22nd, 2024, United Healthcare had a massive data breach. You may remember that. Over 100 million customers were affected. Nancy Pelosi was one of the first people in Congress to hear about the data breach. CEO Thompson told Pelosi that cybersecurity firm Palo Alto Networks was going to lead the investigation and data breach cleanup effort. Hours after Pelosi learned this, she bought $4 million of call options in Palo Alto Networks. Those call options made Nancy Pelosi $11 million. This is where it gets juicy. Brian Thompson was to testify against Nancy Pelosi this upcoming week for insider trading of Palo Alto Networks. So if you think this murder was some sort of Robin Hood attempt to shed light on the evils of healthcare executives, think again. It's always the opposite of what they tell you, folks. It truly is, and people are frothing at the mouth for this guy, who, by the way, I think is a Catholic. Yes, more than $50,000 raised for Luigi Mangione's defense as Catholic background is revealed. Is this in line with everything you've learned about history in the last 2,000 years, even more? Here's a chart of XRP. Let's look at all time. Everybody's like, oh, XRP this, XRP that. Leave me alone. I reject additional cookies. And if you notice, again, I'm not a crypto expert. I'm not telling you what to do with your money, but these things are Ponzi schemes, folks. The reason they have value is because more people are putting money into the Ponzi scheme. XRP has some functional utility, but it's a crypto coin. It's not a product. Look at this. It was at $3 in, 2018? Then people took their money out. Then it went up again in 2021. Then people took their money out. Now it's going up again in 2024, every 3 years, like clockwork. Who knows where it's going to go by now? I'm sure there's an incentive to make XRP the thing. But these things, look at this, plus 37,900% in value. There's no product in history that increases in value like this. Economy doesn't work that way, folks. Products do not increase 38,000% in value overnight. This is ballooning. This is just the next big bubble, like you had with the subprime mortgages and everything else. This is just nonsense. Most of these people, like BlackRock, these people own most of these things, like XRP and Bitcoin. Same thing with Bitcoin. Leave me alone. I hate all these little pop-ups. Close. Leave me alone. There we go. Bitcoin. It just goes up, then people take the money out. It goes up, it swells because it goes on hype. Oh, Bitcoin's the thing. What do you mean Bitcoin's the thing? What does Bitcoin do? It's not a product. It doesn't have value. It doesn't exist. It's a digital representation. So it goes up in value. People take their money. And again, like for example, people like this Larry Fink guy will have a ton of Bitcoin. And through different means, because he's not going to have just one account and sell it so you can identify him. He's going to have it through proxies. They swell it through the media and hype and, Trump says we're going to nationalize Bitcoin, pump up the value, get the middle class hungry to be rich and make money. So they put their money in Bitcoin. And then when it's perfect timing, the rich pull out their share, they sell, and of course, they take their money away. This is the general thing of things. Now, this is an interesting little graphic. I got to show it to you here because these things don't ever load because they're stupid. But anyway, this is a Bitcoin coin. What do you notice on here? I didn't even notice before, but I saw this this is interesting. 33. Here's the 2 3s, of course, and there's the 666 right on the side. Of course, if you read it right side up, it's 999. But why? Why do they do this? You know that these things are symbolic. You know that the original Bitcoin was, with the paper, I believe, was published on Halloween, of all places. Halloween in 1990 something, whatever. Halloween. And you don't know who published it. It's very secretive. It's got Illuminati numbering and secretive society numbering all over it. What is the answer here? Of course, this is a tool by the Jesuits, by the beast, by the people in power, to bring about a digital identity tied to a digital currency that they can completely control through a social credit system. This is the point of Bitcoin. And of course, like they do everything, they start it ahead of time. They trial run it. They go for decades beforehand. And now Trump wants to nationalize Bitcoin. Why? Because it represents the future. Trump calls for abolishing the debt limit. Smartest thing Congress can do. Do you remember what we read about Andrew Jackson and the central bank and what all the true patriotic presidents of this country, what they thought about the central bank and the people who own central banks? And Trump, who's supposed to be against the deep state, who's against the establishment, is all about eliminating the debt ceiling. Let us borrow from this Rothschild system as much as we can. Let's be as indebted as we possibly can. President Trump said he supported abolishing the debt ceiling because it's the smartest thing, a day after scuttling a bipartisan spending bill that would have averted a federal government shutdown in 2 days. Trump informed Republican lawmakers about his opposition to the 1,500-page bill, but put together by House Speaker Mike Johnson and billionaire Elon Musk, whom Trump named to run a government efficiency panel, criticized it as full of Democratic giveaways. In his Wednesday message, Trump pushed for a clear spending bill that increases the debt ceiling. On Thursday, the president-elect told NBC News that he would be fine with ditching it altogether, saying it would be the smartest thing that Congress could do. I would support that entirely. Yeah, because you're a puppet. The Democrats have said that they want to get rid of it. If they want to get rid of it, I would lead the charge, Trump said, noting that the concept of debt ceiling doesn't mean anything except psychologically. It's true. In some sense, it's true that the debt ceiling is meaningless psychologically, but it's not meaningless at all, because what it means is that it furthers taxes and this slave system that's been established through a central bank. If Trump was truly against the establishment, what he would say is, you know what, we're going back to the Constitution and we're printing our own money. We're getting rid of the central bank system so that there's no debt for the money that we print, and the government is sovereign, and whatever, you can base it on gold if you want, but either way, it's not indebted. The money that the United States uses is not its own. It rents that from the producer of the money, which is the federal bank. And in order to pay the Federal Reserve, it has to borrow even more money to pay back the interest. You get it? It's designed to collapse a country and to completely subjugate it. This idea of central banking. And if Trump was actually a patriot, what all you Trump and MAGA people should know is that he should go back to the Constitution and print our own money. But if that's the case, he wouldn't last very long, and he never will do that because he's a puppet of the Jesuit system that brought him up. This is from Daily Mail. Justin Trudeau is on the brink of resigning as his Liberal government crumbles. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is on the brink of resigning as his Liberal government crumbles around him. According to CTV News, Trudeau, 52, is considering his options as leader. Sources have told the broadcaster, while his finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, revealed that she will quit. So there's a lot of dialectics going on with Canada. Canada is collapsing, and there's conservatives that are wanting to take over and go from dark to light. I talked about this in all my dark light episodes. It's only a matter of time, and this is actually right on schedule. This is from National Post. Everything is out of control. Poilievre demands election before Trump takes office amid liberal chaos. Let's read about it. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre demanded on Monday that the government call an immediate election as the Liberals were thrown into chaos by high-profile resignations, saying there's no time to waste with Donald Trump's inauguration as president just over a month away. Dialectics, let's go. You got to do it. Rosie the Riveter, pull up your sleeves and do it. Synergism. Poilievre said it's clear everything is out of control after Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland announced her shocking resignation from cabinet Monday morning, just hours before she was to deliver her fall fiscal update, which she had reportedly clashed with the Prime Minister's office over. No, she's just doing her part. All these people are secret society members, folks. You can't ever believe that something just happens in today's world. It would be ideal to have the election done before the president takes office on January 20th or within the first week or two of his mandate, Poilievre told reporters at a press conference on Parliament Hill, so that the Canadians would have a strong prime minister with brains and backbone facing down President Trump and our American competitors. Really? I don't think so. Poilievre added that he wasn't worried about bringing a holiday election campaign on the Canadians. I think right now Canadians' Christmas holidays are being interrupted by the NDP liberal hell that they're living under, he said. And I think the best Christmas present would be to give Canadians is to let them choose a new common sense conservative government that will bring home Canada's promise. Common sense, yes, the common sense solution to the dark, liberal, atheistic paradigm. The almost right. Remember what the goal of the three councils, the Vienna, the Cherry, or whatever it was called, those three councils in Europe after the Jesuits were reinstated. What was the goal? To have a Catholic empire from the river to the sea, right? From one side of the ocean to the other. United States, Mexico, Canada, all under the papal power. And of course, that's going to happen, and you're going to see it happen in your lifetime if you are alive. But nevertheless, here's some more dialectics. This is the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and just an example of how masterful the Jesuits are at baiting you with blasphemy. So you have this pagan witch doctor doing his ritual to summon the spirits, whatever the heck he's doing, but summoning some spirit, in front of a Catholic altar with a crucifix. And of course, a crucifix is an idol, but nevertheless, it's supposed to represent Jesus. And there's an altar, and there's this abomination doing their spiritual, whatever things that they're doing. Do you think this is just happening? Given everything that we've studied so far, do you think that this is just happening? And of course, your answer should be no. This is by design. The devil is baiting people with blasphemy, parading these pagans in a church so that the radical traditionalists will froth at the mouth and demand reform. They'll be so angry that they will jump into the chessboard and forget that the devil is playing both sides. This is from Illuminati Coin on X. Nunn gives a grave warning regarding the depopulation agenda and calls out the Pope as the spiritual leader of the evil globalists behind it all.
What I think is going on is my summary, but it's not my invention. This is the news, is that the group of globalists, everyone involved in this new reset, global economy, one world order, all of that, anywhere, and enforcing the jab, the COVID vaccine, which is a pathological weapon to destroy our body. That's what it is. And if you haven't felt it, if you've taken the COVID vaccine and you feel just fine, that is working in your body to destroy it. There's an article today on LifeSite News by, I think it's a Dr. McCullough, I have to look it up, who explains exactly what happens with those vaccines. And what I've gathered from all the reports is that the George Soroses of the world, the Bill Gates, everybody involved in this reset, so to speak, and the Holy Father is their spiritual leader. I don't hesitate to say it because I'm not revealing anything that hasn't been all over the news and the Vatican and every place else.
Now, really quick, if the throne of Satan is the papal institution, and that throne is supposed to be hidden from most people because it's a deception, and it's being revealed to you that this pope is this evil pope, and the whole world is coming to know this, is that in alignment with the Bible? That the world is going to marvel after the beast and be totally deceived by this institution? It's not. So that means what's going on to you is a planned self-demolition designed to bait you into the final solution.
Is that they want to control the world population, completely have us under their control. The world population is too big. And so this COVID vaccine has been invented to eliminate us, to kill off a great percentage of the population so that what's left, they have a reasonable hope. I hate to use those words of Bishop Barron, a reasonable hope of killing and controlling the rest of us. So I don't think such a horror book has ever been written, horror novel has ever been written, but it's true. And I believe it 100%. And I think our time is limited, very limited now, for this reign of evil, of persecution, of death, to truly take hold of us. Because as we've heard from many, the forces of evil, as announced by President Biden concerning his own thoughts, are growing impatient. We're too slow in obeying. We're too slow to buy into their false statements. We're too slow to obey their dictates. We're just too slow, and we're holding back the reign of evil. So what's wrong with us? We need to be put away. We need to be silenced. And so I say to you, beloved, that evil is coming upon us, is upon us, but I think we don't have much time. I don't even think it's a few months from now that we're going to experience what we've never imagined. So now is the time. Now, today is the day of salvation. If you hear his voice, don't harden your hearts.
That's right. If you hear his voice, don't harden your heart. But the his that she is referring to is the Catholic Jesus, and that Catholic Jesus does not exist. There's only one Jesus. That's the Jesus of the Scriptures. And the Jesus of the Scriptures gave John a revelation of the things that would happen before his return. And that revelation testifies against the Catholic Church. Now, where does this woman, I don't know anything about her, but where does she, based on the hierarchy of the Catholic Church, where does she fall into play? She falls into the level of the priests and nuns. I didn't have the word nuns on there, but it's bottom tier. What is the responsibility of those people? They are political agents. They are secret society members. They're part of various orders. Look at Mother Teresa. There are so many intrigues with Mother Teresa. In fact, Fauci, I believe, is her son. And so anyway, there's a lot that you can dig into that one. I'm not going to go into it here. But the point is that she is articulating to you a particular perspective. She's acknowledging to you some evil, and so gaining your trust. But who's the big bad boogeyman? It's not the Catholic Church. It's certainly not the Pope. It's just this Pope. This Pope has just happened to be a really evil Pope. No, the other ones were good. The other ones were fine. They were good for the church and everything else. This is just the evil Antichrist Pope. So they're using the easy scapegoat of Pope Francis to apply all of the... It's so brilliant. It's so brilliantly evil. They're applying all of the end times prophecies to this man as the false prophet, or the Antichrist. People are calling Pope Francis all sorts of names. And this is the great apostasy that's happening in the church. And of course, they're applying it to the Catholic Church. And of course, what we need is a revival. But the Bible doesn't tell you about a revival. It tells you that the world will marvel after the beast. So this is to be kept in mind. So lots of dialectics, left and right, going on simultaneously. But you need to realize that all roads lead to Rome. They really do. Zionism and Trump being pro-Zionist is baiting Christian conservatives to hate Israel and to expose Israel more and more and demand that the Jews be converted, which again sets the precedent for the Sabbath keepers being hated. There's a dialectic right now because Trump is playing both sides. Trump is playing the militant Catholic side, and he's playing the Zionist side because he's going to bring peace to the Middle East so that the Jews can be converted. And he's probably going to turn on them, at some point, because he has to. He has to. There's two conflicting sides, Zionism and Catholicism. These two are not compatible. And we know that the Catholic Church is the seat of Satan, so yeah, Zionism will bend the knee. But right now, he's playing the Zionist card, and a lot of conservatives like Stu Peters and so on, and Kenneth Owens and Nick Fuentes are all frothing at the mouth for, why is, Trump, so Zionist? Why is he surrounded by Jews? Expect that dialectic to ramp up, especially as this new third temple is being built and so on. There's a tension that needs to be resolved between the Jews and the Christians and the Catholics, really. And that will set the precedent, as we've described before. There's old guard prosperity preachers being exposed, which makes the Roman Catholic Church look good, Protestants failing, and of course creates the impetus for new influencers that are ecumenical and fresh and young, like Life Surge, to take over and basically bring various workshops and concerts and fellowship and also all this kind of stuff to the world. Financial market dialectics are creating a precedent to introduce a fully digital system via some way, whether it's going to be Bitcoin or XRP or, universal basic income, some sort of utopia salvation from the evil central bank scheme. And so even with this whole thing, Trump's role in saying, well, we can borrow as much as we want, he's only doing that, if anything, to further the agenda forward. Maybe it's going to make the government borrow so much money that it's going to become insolvent, or there's going to be some crisis that's going to be happening where they can't pay their debt, and as a result, we just have to go to this new system. Now it's time to expose the central bank. So whatever they do, we have to keep our eyes on it, but we have to remember American history, folks. This country has been owned by the powers that be for a long time. So The new system with Bitcoin, XRP, digital IDs, digital whatever, it's going to be even more centralized than it currently is. We're not going to go to a decentralized system. I've said this before. When you use a crypto wallet, there's more centralization in that. If it was truly decentralized, DeFi, decentralized finance, if it was truly DeFi, I wouldn't have to put my fingerprint, my KYC, my name, my every single aspect of my life into this wallet in order to access funds. That would be decentralized. You don't need to know who I am. I'm just accessing money and just taking it from there. Why do you need to have all this identity on me? This is why this whole DeFi stuff is nonsense. People think, oh, it's the future. Yeah, it is the future. The Bible told you it's the future a long time ago. No buy, no sell. How do you think it's going to happen? It's going to happen with a digital currency where Satan controls the currency of the whole world. So these DeFi things are just lies. And of course, all these Ponzi schemes, like the stock market, like the crypto, are soaring now. They're soaring. Everybody's, oh man, the economy's going great. But what do you mean the economy's going great? The sheeple are putting their money into these Ponzi schemes where they're owned by most of these top people like Larry Fink and billionaires like Elon Musk, who are just taking the money from them to themselves. Elon Musk has become the most wealthy man in the last 4 years. All the billionaires like Bezos, Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, all of them have made money. There's not a single one that's lost money. They've made a ton of money. And Elon is poised to be a trillionaire by 2027. I mean, that's insane. That is insanity. But that shows you that he's just a puppet like everybody else. And of course, Trump puts 2 billionaires in responsibility for the Doge department to save the government and make it more efficient. You're literally just putting one oligarchy in place of another. Do you get it? How can 2 billionaires who could care less about you and your family, really, how could they care about making the government more efficient? No, they're going to make it more efficient for themselves, not for you, that's for sure. Because again, if Trump was actually against the establishment, he would go back to the Constitution, start printing their own money, get rid of this central banking system, reduce taxes to just be like a national 10% sales tax or something, and that's it. That's what he should do if he was truly against the establishment. And of course, he might do something like that with the new system to entice you into adopting this new digital currency. We'll have to watch, but we know what the future is. He has flipped on Bitcoin. He said he wants to nationalize Bitcoin now and make America all about Bitcoin. And we know Bitcoin has all these usual satanic secret society associations. We know that Bitcoin facilitates what the Bible warns, which is there's going to be a no buy, no sell system to kick you out of. So yeah, it's right in line with Bible prophecy. Trump threatening tariffs on all these countries shows you that the image of the beast is going to be exported to the rest of the world, either by seduction or by force. Either you're going to do what we tell you and you're going to love it, or you're going to be fined 100% and bankrupt. And now that all these countries are more united, they're even easier to manipulate. That's, of course, a lot of dialectics with the Vatican going on as well, with the predictive programming of the Conclave movie. I recently saw Gladiator 2. Again, I watch these just to see like the predictive programming. Of course, there's always something. The hero of Gladiator 2 is Lucius, the Lightbringer, coming to revive Rome from the corruption of its previous emperors. It's just so obvious. It's so obvious what they're doing. The schism in the church between the loyal traditionalists and the liberals on one side is becoming more and more surface level, meaning people are seeing it. But again, remember that everybody's part of their various orders. Nuns, priests, they're all part of their various secret societies and orders. So don't let them fool you that the RCC is crumbling, that the Vatican is going bankrupt. Come on, folks. Come on. You know better by now. The Vatican has all the money in the world. All these things are just fronts. The Roman Catholic Church is about to have its resurrection. And combine all of these things with other false signs and wonders, the Jubilee year, a new pope. It's all coming soon, folks. The resurrection of the Catholic Church is coming very soon. It's going to be an exciting year, that's for sure. The current pope is a destroyer. He's destroying everything. And Jesuits are having a heyday with these blasphemies, like that witch doctor doing a ritual right in front of a crucifix in a church. I mean, that's just so obviously trying to bait people into blasphemy and saying, look, how blasphemous is this? We need to reform. We need to do something. It's designed to infuriate you so that you abandon perspective, you don't think critically, and you zoop. First person perspective, you're on the chessboard, and now I'm fighting against the enemy. That's the point, is to suck your perspective into the front lines so that you're not on top and seeing what's actually being choreographed. That's the point of all these blasphemies. The Jubilee year of 2025 is very likely going to go woke, and it's going to provoke people over the edge. So do not believe for 1 second that the seat of Satan is going bankrupt or is fracturing or, whatever else. It's not going to do that until Jesus returns. So we still have quite a little bit to go because there are many things that need to be fulfilled, like the image of the beast, Sunday laws, persecutions, the bowl judgments, and so on. Kings giving their power to the beast, and so on. The Catholic Church is the wealthiest institution in the last 2,000 years. You know that from the Inquisitions, from the Crusades, from the Jesuits' reductions. Where did all that money go? From all the territories that they conquered, from all the people who control these various things and who do the bidding of the beast. You know that by now. So these are just lies. They're just smokescreens designed to, again, I don't know what the end of these things are. I'm not saying one way or another, but it could be that maybe they might go so far as disbanding the Vatican, because everybody knows about the Vatican now, and saying, oh, well, we need to destroy this and now raise a new one in Rome, in America, in New Rome. That'd be interesting. That could be one way to do it. Another way would be, again, just to set up the Vatican for a resurrection for the new Pope, to come in and rescue it and say, oh, see, now he's our savior, just like Trump was with America. So we'll see how it goes. Either way, there's many false signs and wonders, and that's the next section in this little tour of nonsense. I have to load these up. So here we go. This is, all right, here we go. A lot of false signs and wonders to marvel at. Now, of course, as we near the end and the people are going to marvel after the beast and the great delusion settles in, we can expect false signs and wonders. These can be political, they can be supernatural, they can be religious. There's many deceptions. A false sign and wonder is not just something that's a miracle or miraculous. It's a deception. It's a sign and wonder that is a smokescreen, like the quote-unquote assassination of Trump. That's a false sign and wonder. Look at the fruits of that sign and wonder. People around the world are galvanized with religious thinking and delusion because of this miracle, the miracle of Trump being saved, when in fact it was all choreographed. So anyway, as we near the end, there's going to be more and more of these things. This is from Israel 365. Sanhedrin announces ruling all Jews worldwide must come home to Israel immediately. That's interesting. For the days are coming, declares Hashem, when I will return the fortunes of my people Israel and Yehuda from exile, says Hashem, and I will bring them back to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. Yeah, this is already fulfilled a long time ago. Long time ago. It's not being fulfilled through Israel. I should say, quote-unquote, Israel. The Knesset Sanhedrin in Jerusalem has made an official ruling calling on Jews outside of Israel to come home. We are the Beis Din, rabbinic court of Jerusalem, and we have officially ruled that all Jews around the world have an obligation, a religious requirement, right now to do whatever is in your power to come to Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, and that is the mitzvah of the Torah, biblical requirement. And that is the mitzvah of today, especially because of what's happening around the world and the dangers that all Jews are in around the world. It's necessary now more than ever to come to Israel, and we as a Beis Din have made that proclamation that all the Jews have to come as soon as they can get back to Israel. The Sanhedrin's ruling was intended for Jews worldwide, so it was recorded in English, Hebrew, Yiddish, French, and Spanish. This is a big deal. The Jews are really frothing at the mouth to build that temple, to fulfill their fleshly salvation, which Trump is going to give them, and the Jesuits are going to give them, and that's going to abolish Zionism. It's going to abolish the extremist jihadis, and the people that are left are going to be converted via the charismatic movement, and the ones that refuse will be precedents for throwing under the bus. Here's some more false prophets. Lance Wallnau and I think it's Todd White. Oh, wait a minute. It's always...
What's going to happen is what Trump is going to do and accomplish in America is going to be a model to actually fix what's happening in other nations. They're going to follow our lead.
Pay attention.
That everything is about to shift and change, and they're about to follow what's happening right now with Trump in America, how he says, make America great again. But the reality of it is that when I was praying with Patricia King this morning on the phone,
another false prophet,
it's make the world great again. It's this is going to be a model, a Cyrus model of what he's going to do here to transform every nation. And it's going to happen. And America is going to lead this thing in the charge.
Oh, Is this in alignment with what the Bible prophesied 2,000 years ago? That America is the false prophet, and it will bring a system of government to the rest of the world that will enable those countries to pledge their power to the beast and marvel after the papal institution. Is this in alignment with prophecy being fulfilled? Make the world great again. Oh man, you cannot make this stuff up. You really can't. It's crazy. Crazy. What a time to be alive. Gateway Pundit. Economist Stephen Moore, in the next 18 months, major governments will topple, bringing in Trumpian populist candidates. Economist Stephen Moore told Fox News Network on Monday morning to discuss the amazing changes playing out in the global stage and here at home since President Donald Trump won his election in November in a landslide. Stephen pointed out how world leaders and business leaders are flocking to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump before his return next month to the White House. They're all kissing the ring, folks. Stephen also predicted we are going to see major governments topple, bringing in populist Trumpian candidates in the next 18 months. That's their timeline. Next year and a half, you're going to see some major shifts, folks. We got to be ready for that 2028 Olympics. This will be a great thing and will bring prosperity to the entire world. What does the Bible tell you, man? When they say peace and safety, sudden destruction will come upon them. When they say peace and safety means when they have adopted the system. We're safe, we have peace, we have prosperity. Yay, look at the Pope, he's so great. Let's marvel after him. When you say that, oh, the bowl judgments are going to drop and they're going to start and they're going to be very intense and fast for those people who took the mark. So do not be one of them. Learn the truth. This is from, this is Trump and is this a video? I think it's a video. Yes, it is. Oh my gosh. Trump and the Palladians. Let's see.
Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it. That's according to Israel's former space security chief in an interview with an Israeli newspaper.
Who is a secret society member.
He said, the aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. NBC News chief global correspondent Bill Neely explains this one.
Hi, Alison. Well, this is quite a story, and it comes from the man who headed Israel's space security program for nearly 30 years. Chaim Eshed is making the extraordinary claim that the United States and Israel have been in contact with a group of aliens for years, not immigrants, but extraterrestrials. He has called them the Galactic Federation of Aliens, and he says President Trump is aware of the existence of these aliens and had been on the verge of revealing their secrets, he claims, but was asked not to do so by the Federation in order to prevent what he calls mass hysteria. Well, the retired general says the US and Israel have kept it from the public because, quotes, humanity isn't ready and the aliens don't want to reveal themselves until humanity can evolve, he says, and understand what space really is. Now, this former head of a branch of Israel's defense ministry is 87. He was very well respected, at least until now. And he said all this in an interview with an Israeli newspaper in Hebrew, but it's really taken off after parts of it were published in English by the Jerusalem Post today. He says he's come forward now in the hope that his news will be accepted as true. He notes that if he'd made these claims 5 years ago, he would have been hospitalized, but now he says, I've got nothing to lose. Well, so far, President Trump has not tweeted about this, though remember a year ago, he did set up the Space Force as the fifth branch of the US Armed Forces.
Didn't Alice Bailey say that 2025 is the year of the externalization of the hierarchy? And Aleister Crowley, who we looked at with his Catholic connection, said that the great work would begin in the year of the snake, which happens to be next year, 2025, the year of the snake. So all of these things are converging, and there's false signs and wonders left and right. Of course, we know that there's no little green men from Mars. We know that if you've watched my cosmology series, all these things are designed to bring about the one world system. How they're going to play it, who knows? Are we going to see, actual contact of some kind? Or is it going to just be smoke and mirrors that they're going to use to justify, uniting the Earth into some, worldwide federation of who knows? Who knows? But we know these things. We know that all roads lead to Rome. That's the point of today. All roads lead to Rome. You don't need to know everything that happens in the news or what the thing behind it is, but you know the direction. That's the point. Speaking of more false signs and wonders, this is a video that I saw, and we're going to go to 10 minutes and 30 seconds. This is about a person, Corey Comparador, who was supposedly shot at the Trump rally. But I want to show you something. You can watch this whole video on your own. I'll put it in the references. But typical nonsense. I want you to look at this. See, when they're dragging him out. First off, they were able to pick up a guy. He's like 6'6" and 250 pounds or whatever he was. And they pick him up like a rag doll. And there's handles on the legs. Watch the handles. Look at the handles. See? And they're picking him up just so easily. Look how they're picking him up by the pant leg. And there's no strain in this guy's arm. Hardly any strain. Any strain. So you can watch more on this. There's a lot of suspicious stuff, which again proves to you that these things are no different. These are staged Jesuit theater antics to create a particular false sign and wonder that makes people marvel. Now people are marveling after Trump because of this supposed assassination. Now, did some people get killed? Who knows? Maybe some of them did. Of course, that makes it more realistic, right? But this guy for sure seems it wasn't. He's in on it. Cory Comparador, CC. C is the third letter of the alphabet. What does CC do? 33. Typical Masonic signature all over these things as usual. So you can look at it yourself. Here's thousands of Catholics worship Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in the Indian state of Kerala. Coming to the forefront. Come on now. These people have zero discernment, folks. Catholicism, this is idolatry. If you asked anybody who wrote the Bible, if they were somehow alive today and they saw this, they would believe this is idolatry. These people come from thousands of years of idolatry because they're part of the mystery religion. So of course to them, this is, okay, whatever. It's just like we used to do, but with this now, it's a little different. There's no difference for these people. So they are going to be so easily wrapped up in marveling after the beast. Do you get it? People are like, oh, these pagan nations are never going to convert. Yes, they will. Catholicism is paganism. Catholicism is the mystery religion in its finest and final form. And these people are going to be deceived so easily and so quickly because they have an entire history of pagan worship. So for them to go from worshiping idols of Vishnu and what's the other one? Ganesh, to worshiping an idol of the Eucharist and light is no different. It's no different. It's going from dark to light, from one system of idolatry to another. Meanwhile, you have the Notre Dame Cathedral unveiling its interior after 5 years of a devastating fire, quote unquote. And this is a whole other false sign of wonder to me. This is a fascinating situation. So in the timing, of course, timing is perfect for the resurrection of the Catholic Church. Look at this. I went to Notre Dame when I was little and I was a teenager. We used to go to Europe. I remember going in Notre Dame. It was super dark. The walls were like super dirty and dark, and it was just a very Gothic kind of place. I mean, I kind of liked it because I was like, I like Gothic art, but now it's like super light. Look at all the light. Dark to light. Literally, it went from dark to light. Of course, Notre Dame is what? The woman, the Virgin, the Divine Feminine, Our Lady. And, they compare you to the two different churches. So yeah, it went from dark to light. And that's really interesting. They even tell you here, baptized by Notre Dame's rebirth from the fire. One photo taken just after the blaze that nearly destroyed Notre Dame. The other heralds its rebirth. There's a rebirth that's happening, folks. And of course, these things are setting precedents. Just like God used Ezekiel as a prophet to lay on his side, and through that representation to make a precedent for the judgment that was coming. Just like how God used Abraham and Isaac and offering Isaac on Mount Moriah as a representation of what would happen through Christ. God uses the physical things to set precedents. The Antichrist power does the same thing too. The Antichrist power creates physical things as a revealing the method of what it's intending to do. This is a spiritual statement. Notre Dame is resurrecting because the Catholic Church is going to be resurrected, dark to light. and the world will marvel after it. Trump and 50 heads of state to attend reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral and the satanic celebrations in Paris. Now, if you read just that headline alone, given the history that you know of this country and of the world the last 2,000 years, who does Trump belong to? Do the Jews own Trump, really? No, they don't. The Catholics own Trump. On Friday this week, December 6th, St. Nicholas Day, will start the weekend of the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, France. It was announced today that President Trump is making his first trip outside the U.S., being elected to attend the ceremonies of this iconic Christian building, along with 50 other heads of state this weekend. While the cathedral will open to the public on Saturday when most guests arrive, the ceremony starts on Friday, this December 6th, which is also St. Nicholas Day. And of course, there's a lot of occult things about St. Nicholas, who used to basically supposedly control the water and do all sorts of weird things, with Paris Archbishop Laurent Ulrich putting on a show by banging on the cathedral's ornate doors with his staff in a symbolic gesture that it is time for them to open again. The ceremony on December 6th will kick off with Paris Archbishop Laurent, yada yada yada, or Ulrich will then reawaken the cathedral's iconic grand organ, whose 8,000 pipes have been meticulously removed, cleaned, and retuned after being doused in toxic dust when the fire melted the cathedral's roof. Considering some of the pipes stand an incredible 33 feet tall, it shows how much of an undertaking the cleaning process was. This will then give way to a series of musical performances, including South African opera singer such and such, and Chinese pianist Yang Chung, Lang Lang. Cellist Yo-Yo Ma will follow before singers Angelique Kidjo and Hiba Tawaji in Benin and Lebanon, respectively, will perform a concert that will be broadcast by France Télévisions. On the morning of December 7th, 170 bishops from all over France and other countries and priests from all 106 parishes will attend an inaugural mass where the new altar will be consecrated. New altar to make their sacrifice because of the incoming resurrection of the beast. Originally built between the 12th and 14th centuries over the course of 182 years, this building is basically a Masonic temple, originally financed by the Knights Templar. When it was damaged by the fire in 2019, just months before the COVID scam, many theories were published as to the cause of the fire. Many of the iconic statues were miraculously moved to safety just days before the fire. The late Robert David Steele, a former CIA agent intelligence expert who died during COVID, referred to the burning of Notre Dame in 2019 as a false flag event that was planned. Robert Steele: I was devastated by the total burning of Notre Dame Cathedral, a place where I once prayed in thanks for one of my sons, who survived what might otherwise have been a certain death. The parallels to both the Reichstag fire and 9/11 loomed. Then I heard from the shadow foreign minister of France, and I believed all the following to be true and an indictment of Macron, Merkel, May, and the Pope. Notre Dame would not have burned as it did without the explicit complicity of the Church, and key police, fire, and government offices in Paris in detail in advance and into the future. Here's what I have been told by the ranking source in France. Number 1, Canadian intelligence officers who went immediately to the site for a first-hand look were prevented from getting close. No electricity in the area where the fire is alleged to have started. Number 3, 2 dead within the fire, both evidently murdered, 2 bullets each. No helicopters brought into the fight the fire. Number 5, dysfunctional water spraying machine, a mockery of a firefighting performance. Official narrative pretending it was a non-accident was immediate and clearly on the shelf and ready to go. Timing impossible to miss, intended to prevent announcement of Macron's loss in the nationwide debate inspired by the yellow vests. Afternote A, anniversary of the Titanic that was a precursor to the creation of the central banks and the subversion of all the governments. Afternote B, this is intended to save the global financial system owned by the Satanists by saving the European election in May, anticipating a call for financial solidarity that keeps France trapped in the Europe by EU agreeing to pay for the renovation of the cathedral. EU and central banks are the beneficiaries of this false flag event, along with Macron as the token leader of France on behalf of the satanic deep state. Afternote C, this is an intended death blow against Western civilization. Although Muslims are not being blamed, the subtext is Frankfurt School, Tavistock Institute fundamental. Whites in the West are expletive. Hail all illegal immigrants, transgenders, and fat stupid people, the sheep of all the sheep. Afternote D, the roof of Notre Dame was original to the 13th century and has survived all wars, all manner of natural hazards. This was the single most precious asset in France, not so much a Catholic religious asset as a national spiritual cultural asset. Final conclusion, the Satanists are desperate. Leo Zagami has written about how many people were present at the fire, claimed to see a figure appear that resembled a Knight Templar. So some sort of figure appeared. As the Cathedral of Notre Dame collapsed overwhelmingly by fires, a strange event occurred in the upper part of the cathedral, right before the eyes of millions of viewers. A mysterious figure materialized dressed very much like a Knight Templar in a white turban, which was in use in the Middle Eastern commanderies of the Knights Templar in the 13th century. Pope Francis remained silent during the fire of Notre Dame Cathedral and spoke for the first time about the tragedy the following morning. The first to speak were the French bishops, and as the new president of the French Bishops' Conference, Eric de Molin-Beaufort, recalled how nothing on this earth is made to last forever. This pragmatic statement was followed by the Italian bishops, who sent fraternal embrace to the Archbishop of Paris, as did those of Vienna and London. Yeah, they're all part of orders, folks. Remember, esoteric, exoteric government. Almost everyone spoke, but Pope Francis did not, despite the fact that the second most visited church after St. Peter was burning to the ground. The reason for his silence is simple. Under the 1905 law on the separation of church and state, Notre Dame de Paris is one of the 70 churches in Paris built before that year, which are owned by the French state. While the building itself is owned by the state, the Catholic Church is the designated beneficiary, with the exclusive right to use it for religious purposes in perpetuity, but also the responsibility of paying employees for security, heating, cleaning, and for ensuring that the cathedral is open for visitors. The Archdiocese does not receive subsidies from the French state, and the Vatican has not invested the necessary money into protecting it. That is why the Almighty Pope was embarrassed about, because the church is his direct responsibility. Only on the late Monday evening did we hear news from the Vatican and their pretty lame response. Quote, "The Holy See has received with shock and sadness the news of the terrible fire which devastated the symbol of Christianity." Of course, the Holy See knew all about it. The cathedral was originally financed by the Knights Templar, not by the Vatican, and built by operative Masons loyal to the Christian faith that have recently reclaimed this space during a Mass that took place on the 18th of March 2017 in the Cathedral of Notre Dame to mark the rebirth of the Nouveau Ordre Mondial Templier, the Templar New World Order. The Nouveau Ordre Mondial Templier of the Grand Master Pierre de Lyon wishes to gain acceptance within the Church, and in his recent image published on social media, he is placed next to the Grand Master of the Knights Hospitaller and the Teutonic Knights. Here they are, all of them in their various robes. In France, the Knights Templar were big financial backers for many major building projects, including the Great Cathedral of Notre Dame de Paris, which was constructed under the direction and participation of operative Freemasons, which, by the way, a lot of the operative Freemasons, if you recall, were also Jews. When Knights Templars built or funded great buildings, Freemasons were heavily involved from the Middle East through France, Italy, Portugal, Spain, England, Scotland, France, and other European countries. The Knights Templar had holdings in the Templar districts that were not subject to city or country taxation. They were technically church property. This is where the ancillary personnel for the commandery or other Templar operations lived. Many operative Masons lived within the Templar districts, and by the 1200s, both groups began profiting from each other's expertise. Both groups simultaneously created labor unions, and Masons, through the historic documents, joined the Templars and worked on Templar and church buildings. Built by Masons, financed by Templars, it makes sense that this figure could have been a ghost of an original Knights Templar sending a veiled message to the Jesuit Pope. Just two sides of the occult. The Freemason ties between Paris and Washington, D.C. are very strong, as the D.C. city is patterned after Paris, and it was France who constructed the Statue of Liberty. That's right, we look into that quite a bit into my various episodes of the End Time series. Here's Elon Musk at the presence of the Notre Dame's resurrection. Tech billionaire Elon Musk has arrived at Notre Dame Cathedral to attend the reopening ceremony. CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier explains what this means. What does it mean? Well, you know what it means. You know that he's pledging his power and his finances to his puppet masters. Here's a video. If you look into My Pet Goat 2 and Cathedral of Notre Dame, it's fascinating how this is an exact prediction. Look at this.
That is actually my video here. I did a side-by-side, and they borrowed it here, it looks like. Let's rewind it. This is supernatural revelation. There it is right there. Unbelievable.
Crazy. Look, it's the same thing. This is My Pet Goat 2, predictive programming, exactly what they're going to do. And they did it. So these things are all staged, folks. That means that the resurrection is also staged. It's all just dialectical false signs and wonders to bring about the final delusion. Trump proposes building 10 freedom cities and flying cars. Freedom cities. Former President Donald Trump on Friday proposed building up to 10 futuristic freedom cities on federal land, part of the 2024 presidential contender said would create a new American future in a country that has lost its boldness. Commuters, meanwhile, could get around in flying cars, Trump said, an echo of the Jetsons, you know, like that cartoon that you used to watch, the classic cartoon about a family in a high-tech future society. Work to develop vertical takeoff and landing vehicles is already underway by major airlines, auto manufacturers, and other companies, although widely seen as years away from reaching the market. I want to ensure that America, not China, big bad boogeyman, communist boogeyman, leads this revolution in an air mobility. Trump, who announced his third bid for the presidency in November, said in a 4-minute video detailing his plan. He said he would launch a contest to charter up to 10 freedom cities, roughly the size of Washington, D.C., on undeveloped federal land. We'll actually build new cities in our country again, Trump said in the video. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream. Now, if you believe that, I really, truly have some amazing beachfront property to sell you in Phoenix in the middle of winter, of all things. So there's that. Freedom cities are the same thing that the deep state wanted to build, quote unquote, the deep state. There are these little kibbutzes they're going to put you in, just like they're trying in the Middle East with the Line experiment, which failed miserably last I looked. But this is the ideal, folks. This is the ideal. A digital city that seems hot and fresh and cool. And it's got all the comforts in the world. But in order to be part of this city, you have to be completely integrated. So they can shut you off if you don't comply. This is the model. So the freedom cities are just experiments to bring about that reality forward. Dismiss, leave me alone. This is from New York Post. New Jersey senator says feds are too fearful of public reaction to tell the truth about mysterious drones. Again, more false signs and wonders with these drones. The truth is out there. They're just too scared to tell us. A New Jersey state senator has bluntly accused the government of hiding the truth about the mysterious drones flying over the Garden State, saying the feds are too fearful of how people will react. Well, people are aware of the shenanigans of the UFO paradigm, but the problem is that they're still deceived by heliocentrism. And that is why they believe they're aliens. Because if you're not, I already did this one, Galactic Federation. If you believe that they're not aliens, that the Earth is in an enclosed system of some kind, then you know that these are demonic. And you know all of the stories of people getting so-called abducted by aliens and praying to Jesus, hundreds of them, and the experience coming to an end. These are demons. They're fallen angels. Who knows what the nature of them exactly is, but either way. More false signs and wonders. A new chapter of the Bible was found hidden inside a 1,750-year-old text. New chapter of the Bible found. I wonder what it's about. Let's see. Unearthing a lost piece of biblical history in a groundbreaking intersection of technology and ancient history, scholars have uncovered a hidden chapter of the Bible within a 750-year-old Syriac manuscript preserved in the Vatican Library. I'm sure it's reputable. Using ultraviolet light, researchers revealed traces of erasing writing, a palimpsest buried beneath layers of overwritten text. This painstaking process illuminated an early version of Scripture lost to time, but now introduced into the world. I wonder what it's about. Let's see. Hidden chapter, what we know so far. The newly unveiled chapter offers an expanded version of Matthew 12, a passage where Jesus and his disciples are criticized for picking grain on the Sabbath. You really can't make this up, folks. Now the Sabbath is going to be prime and centered discussion for everybody. Let's talk about the Sabbath. In this version, subtle textual variations bring fresh theological nuances to light, emphasizing compassion and mercy over rigid observance of religious laws. Do you understand? Do you understand what's going on here? While the core message aligns with established teachings, these differences hint at a dynamic and adaptive nature of early Christian scripture. In other words, this brings to you a sneak peek into what actually happened with Jesus. Really, there's actually, more. It's more about compassion. And, we could rest on Sunday because it's not about keeping that Old Testament law. It's about really going, with compassion and with what makes sense with culture and everything else. This is the design of this false sign and wonder. And of course, these things suddenly are now discovered right when the world is poised for a Catholic resurrection. Dismiss yet again. The face of Jesus. Oh, here we go. Some more false signs and wonders. AI recreates stunning likeness of Shroud of Turin image that many believe to be Christ from August of this year. Of course, we don't know what Jesus looked like. He certainly probably didn't have long hair, but either way, new X-ray analysis seems to prove that the Shroud of Turin was indeed from Jesus Christ's time, allowing artificial intelligence to recreate stunning images of what many believe could be the Christ himself. Christians have long believed that the treasured relic was the burial cloth of Jesus, showing an imprint of the Messiah's face. While dating analysis from the 1980s suggests that it was actually a painted forgery from the 1300s, yeah, it is a forgery. New X-ray dating evaluation suggests it was from 2,000 years ago, putting it in Christ's time, according to the study published in the Heritage Journal. Here it is, these great images made by AI, which is acting as a false prophet to give you a certain thing and to push you into a particular direction of religious activity. This whole Shroud of Turin thing, which we'll debunk very soon here, debunk it once and for all. But this has been pushed on the world in anticipation of the pilgrimages of the Jubilee year, in all the rhetoric that's happening between the atheistic system and the religious system. These things have been pushed out into the world. Suddenly everybody's arguing about the Shroud of Turin. Why, I wonder? And you have these AI images. There's another one with Mary here. This is from The Sun. AI artist creates a realistic image of teenage Virgin Mary before she gave birth to the Son of God using the Shroud of Turin. So using the Shroud of Turin, let's see. He has artificial intelligence to create the most realistic image of the teenage Virgin Mary before she gave birth to Jesus. The tech expert said he could reconstruct the face of the Virgin Mary after she mysteriously appeared on a piece of cloth more than 700 years ago in Mexico. So what did he actually use? He used Diego, what's his name? Was Juan Diego, I believe the guy's name. He used Juan Diego's false sign and wonder, because Mary is dead. She's waiting to be resurrected, folks. So the being that appeared to Juan Diego in the 1500s and imprinted itself miraculously on his garment, the whole story about the Our Lady of Guadalupe, imprinted itself on the garment. That's the image that the AI, which is a false prophet, is using. Do you understand what level of craziness we're in at the end of history, where false signs and wonders, real false signs and wonders, supernatural false signs and wonders are being propagated by technological false signs and wonders to create these idolatries? Oh, this is what Mary looked like. And of course, all the Catholics are going to be all about it, and religious mindset. And this is going to draw the curiosity of secular people. Oh, this is what Mary looked like. What's Mary like? Oh, where's that come from? Oh, that comes from Juan Diego. Think what happened there? Oh, Mary appeared to him. Well, maybe Mary is real. Maybe Catholics have it right. This is what the whole point is, folks. These false signs and wonders are marveling after the beast. Now, let's debunk this whole shroud thing so that you are clear on it for all time. This is from shroud.com and debunking the shroud. Let's see. Nothing puzzles and intrigues the Syndonologist, the student of the Shroud of Turin, more than the supposed mystery of how the image on the shroud was made. It doesn't look like any known work of art, they say. The implication is that its creation was somehow miraculous, perhaps caused by a sudden burst of cosmic energy as the cloth came into contact with the dead body of Jesus. But in fact, it is simply historical ignorance of what the shroud really is, or at least what it purports to be, that leads people to wrong-headed notions. The Shroud of Turin is not, by definition, a work of art, but instead belongs to long and revered tradition of sacred objects that are once relics and icons. Such objects first appeared during the 6th century in the Holy Land. In Greek, they are called aikeropoitai, singular aikeropoitos, which means not made by human hands. They are called this because they are apparently contact impressions of holy bodies. They have become relics through physical contact with the sacred, and they are icons because of the resultant image. But in neither case is there, by definition, any intervention by an artist. Among the earliest aikeropoitai is the column of the flagellation in Jerusalem. This relic, the column, appears for the first time in 5th century historical sources, which describe its location in the Church of the Holy Sion. But it is only in the 6th century that pilgrims began to see the image of Jesus' hands and the chest impressed into its stone surface, left there presumably as Jesus was bound in the place for the flagellation. The most characteristic form of aikeropoitos, however, is the holy cloth. According to legend, St. Veronica stepped forward to wipe the sweat off Jesus' brow as he stumbled toward Calvary, and her towel, already transformed into a relic through that holy contact, miraculously retained the image of Jesus' face. These are false signs and wonders, folks. The Bible doesn't tell you this happened. It's part of the Stations of the Cross. Known as Veronica's veil, the relic became one of the most famous aikeropoitai of the Middle Ages. Another such cloth image, also generated by perspiration, was produced on the night of the betrayal as Jesus prayed intently at Gethsemane. And then there is the Shroud of Turin, seemingly produced by blood plasma, and sweat absorbed from Jesus' dead body at the time of the atonement. Several reputed examples of each of these holy icon cloths have surfaced over the centuries. At least 36 cloths have been identified as Veronica's veil, the Holy Shroud, and the like. In the 12th century Constantinople alone, there were 2 iconic burial shrouds and 1 Gethsemane tell, each of which was eventually destroyed. What sets the Shroud of Turin apart is not what it is, but rather how it, almost alone among its object type, has survived more or less intact to modern times. But the more important point is this: the Shroud of Turin is not and never was a work of art in the conventional sense of that term. And in fact, were it not in any way look like a work of art, something made by human hands, this would immediately disqualify it from being what it is supposed to be, an archairopoitos. This is the catch-22 that syndonologists fail to appreciate. For the shroud to be the shroud, it more or less has to look the way it looks. Furthermore, the shroud is in no way unique in appearance among its object type. The single salient quality that these sacred objects share is that the very quality that is so striking about the shroud, namely, a faint and elusive image seemingly produced by bodily secretions. How is it, finally, that we know for certain that the Shroud of Turin is a fake? Without prejudicing the possibility that one or more among history's several dozen archairopoitai may be genuine, we can be positive that this one cannot, since according to its carbon-14 dating, it could not possibly have come into contact with the historical Jesus. Yet it would be incorrect to view the Shroud of Turin as just another icon, because it was very clearly, very self-consciously doctored in order to become what millions, until recently, have taken it to be, an image not made by human hands. And these, unlike icons, can only be of one kind. The Shroud of Turin was created to deceive. It was manufactured at a time, in Western Europe especially, when relics meant pilgrimage and pilgrimage meant money. Like I said, right before the 2025 Jubilee, with all the pilgrimage and stuff, suddenly the Shroud of Turin comes back into the forefront. Do you understand the connection? The competition for both among rival cities and towns was intense, and stealing, forgery were both part of the business. It was also a time when the material remains of Jesus' passion were very much in vogue, when St. Louis would build Saint Chapelle solely to enshrine the crown of thorns, which had recently been stolen from Constantinople. A contemporary model will help us understand this culture in which the blood and gore of Jesus' death carried intense spiritual power. Although Emperor Constantine outlawed crucifixion in 315 AD, the practice as a form of piety has never completely been abandoned. To this day, some members of a lay confraternity of Spanish-American Catholics in northern New Mexico, called the penitentes, are said to practice various forms of extreme body mortification during Holy Week, including self-crucifixion. Yeah, the Philippines does this too. They're crazy. Thus, the penitentes understand the physical reality of crucifixion a few more than them have. The penitentes, also known for their artwork, most characteristics are their carved wooden crucifixes painted blue, which incorporate their first-hand knowledge of crucifixion, specifically the knowledge that the body eventually turns blue from suffocation. Just weird, just so weird, man. The carbon-14 dating of the shroud to 1260-1390 AD brings us to the world of the penitentes patron saint Francis of Assisi, who died in 1226. To his stigmata, the miraculous wounds on his hands, feet, and side, in other words, the demonic wounds, and especially to the lay brothers, that his piety and his cult of self-mortification engendered. This Christian appreciated and understood Jesus' wounds in a very physical way. Yeah. This is the world of the Holy Shroud. These are the people for whom it would have been held special meaning, and these certainly are the people for whom it was made. Just as the penitentes understand the significance of the blueness, these medieval Christians would have understood that the nails must have gone through Jesus' wrists in order to hold the body to the cross, although in medieval art these wounds are invariably in the palms. And their cult and images would match this physical understanding of crucifixion, even to the point of adding human blood, much as the penitentes add human hair and bone to their cult images. All of which is to say that the indication of the nail holes in the wrists and what some claim is the presence of blood on the linen need not add up to a miracle. Knowing both this and the shroud's carbon dating of 1260 to 1390 AD, it is worth returning finally to the place, the time of the shroud's first appearance in historical documents, also very important. It is the year 1357, and the shroud is being exhibited publicly to pilgrims. It belongs to a French nobleman, Geoffroy de Charnay, and is being displayed in his private chapel in Lire, a village near Troyes in northeastern France. The Bishop of Troyes, Henry Poitiers, is upset because he believes the shroud is a fake. In fact, he has been told by this He has been told this by a man who claims to have painted it. 30 years pass, it is now 1389, and Henry's successor, Pierre d'Arches, writes a long letter of protest about the shroud to Pope Clement VII. He recalls his predecessor's accusation and then goes on to state his own conviction that the shroud is the product of human handicraft, a cloth cunningly painted by a man. He pleads with the Pope to end its public display. The Pope's written reply is cautious but clear. The shroud may still be displayed, but only on the condition that a priest may be in attendance to announce to all present in a loud and intelligible voice, without any trickery, that the aforesaid form or representation, i.e. the shroud, is not the true burial cloth of our Lord Jesus Christ, but only a kind of painting or picture made as a form or representation of the burial cloth. This was the true verdict, the correct verdict from the Pope, issued less than 4 decades after the shroud was painted. And isn't it ironic that it was taken 600 years to get essentially the same answer, but this time from the offices of an internal team of scientists? So yeah, they acknowledged it was a fake, but there's more. This is The Shroud Painting Explained by Walter C. McCrone. I beg to differ with the recent statement in The Bar and in Time magazine that no one has been able to account for the image of the Shroud of Turin. Nearly 20 years ago, the Catholic Church invited me to determine chemically what the image on the Shroud of Turin was. I obtained 32 samples from the shroud, 18 from areas where there are images of both a body and a bloodstains, and 14 from non-image areas, some from clear areas that served as controls, others from scorch and water stains caused by a fire in 1532. These samples were taken with squares of sticky tape, each of which exceeded a square inch in area and held more than 1,000 linen fibers and many materials attached to the shroud. They were excellent samples. I used standard forensic tests to check for blood. I found none. There is no blood on the shroud. To determine what substances are present in the shroud images, I conducted tests based on polarized light microscopy. I identified the substance of the body and blood images as the paint pigment red ochre in a collagen tempera medium. The blood image areas consisted of another pigment, vermilion, in addition to red ochre and tempera. These paints were in common use during the Middle Ages. The paint on the shroud was dilute, 0.01% in a 0.01% gelatin solution. I made up such a paint, and an artist friend, Walter Sanford, painted an excellent shroud-like image, known as grisaille. The style of painting with its very faint monochromatic image was also common in the 14th century. Based on the complete absence of any reference to the shroud before 1356, Bishop Henry of Poitiers' statement that he knew the artist, the 14th century painting style, and my own results, I conclude in 2 papers published in 1980 that the shroud was painted in 1355 to give the paint a year to dry. A 3rd paper in 1981 confirmed these results with X-ray diffraction, scanning electron microscopy, and energy dispersive X-ray determination of the elements present in 2 paints. 8 years after my published results, the carbon dating results were reported as 1325, plus or minus 65 years, thus confirming my date of 1355. An expert in microanalysis and painting, authenticator Walter C. McCrone is Director Emeritus of the McCrone Research Institute in Chicago, Illinois. So a lot of people have debunked. There's more articles here, and there's a lot of evidence to this. First off, if you read the Bible, John 20, verse 67, it says, Then Simon Peter came following him, and went into the tomb. He saw the linen cloths, plural, lying there, and the face cloth, which had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen cloths, but folded up in a place by itself. So there's not one shroud that Jesus was covered in. There were multiple cloths, and there was a face cloth separately. Of course, these things aren't in survival today because God doesn't want you to be idolizing over his physical appearance, but rather to believe in God to worship God in spirit and truth. Here's another article that's important to understand. Shroud of Turin isn't Jesus' burial cloth claims forensic study. This is a recent study, relatively recent. It's in 2018, but the conclusions are very important because, this is one study. Let me see. Hold on a sec. Because there's another one that's recent that's really good. I think it erased my highlights. Over the past several centuries, many people have claimed to have found Jesus' burial cloth. One of the most famous candidates is the Shroud of Turin, so named because it has been housed in the Cathedral of St. John, yada yada. The Shroud of Turin is 14 linen cloth bearing the image of a crucified man, first serviced in 1354. It's not the only possible relic associated with Christ. Others include a crown of thorns at Notre Dame, and Christ's supposed foreskin, allegedly stolen from Calcutta, Italy around 1983, but has produced one of the most heated debates. As recently as 2009, researchers discredited the Shroud of Turin by claiming they found Jesus' real burial cloth. Now researchers are using forensic techniques to argue that the bloodstains on the shroud could not have come from Christ, so confirming what the guy found in the 1980s. Forensic anthropologist Matteo Borini and chemistry professor Luigi Garlascelli used a live volunteer and a mannequin to study how blood from Jesus' crucifixion and spear would have flowed into his burial shroud. Using both human and synthetic blood, they were unable to find a single position in which the blood flowed into experimental cloths to create the stain pattern on the Shroud of Turin. So, based on forensic analysis, here's another take on it. So you have the chemical analysis, you have the carbon dating, you have the forensic analysis of basically how blood actually flows, and it would not flow in the way that this shroud is composed. They published their findings in the Journal of Forensic Sciences, 2018, July 10th. So the way that this is supposedly flowing, it doesn't match reality. Here's another unique type of study that was done. October 31st, 2024. Facial reconstruction expert uses 3D software to show Shroud of Turin did not cover Christ. This is another unique thing that has nothing to do with carbon dating, chemical analysis. It's a different take on the same thing. A world expert in facial reconstruction has used computer software to demonstrate that the Shroud of Turin could not have enveloped the corpse of Christ. The shroud may not be genuine because the image of Christ imprinted on it should be more distorted than the famous image marked on the cloth, and had it actually been wrapped around Jesus' three-dimensional body. A flurry of recent studies into the shroud have offered evidence that one of history's most disputed artifacts does not in fact date back to 2,000 years, lending support to those who claim it is one of the most astonishing artifacts in existence, and countering previous claims that it is a medieval forgery. But the new research by Cicero Moraes, reputed to be a world leader in forensic facial reconstruction software, has demonstrated that even if the cloth is 2,000 years old, it could not have covered the actual body of Jesus due to the image on the shroud being, in effect, normal-sized. Using 3D software, Mr. Moraes built a virtual simulation in which the fabric was fitted over a body to replicate the shroud covering Jesus. After being taken off the body and laid flat, the image left on the cloth was substantially distorted, as if stretching long ways at odds with the image of the body of the Shroud of Turin, which shows the body of a slim, normally proportioned man. Exactly. The expert found the image on the shroud could only be created if a cloth was placed over a bas relief of a human figure, such as a shallow stone carving. You'll see a graphic of it in a second. When you wrap a 3D object with a fabric and that object leaves a pattern like bloodstains, these stains generate a more robust and more deformed structure in relationship to the source, he says. So roughly speaking, what we see is, as a result of printing the stains from a human body, would be a more swollen and distorted version of it, not an image that looks like a photocopy. Exactly. A bas relief, however, would cause the image to deform, resulting in a figure that resembles a photocopy of the body. So here's kind of the idea. Like, if you wrap this around a body, it's going to be much more distorted. But if you wrap it around like sort of like an engraving type of thing, it's going to create what looks like this 2D image of the body. Whereas if it was actually wrapped around the body, it would be very distorted. Very different. Mr. Moraes explains the image that should appear on the shroud would be very different to the normal size one that is on it, comparing the stretched out appearance that would occur on the phenomenon known as the Mask of Agamemnon effect, with the face, scalp, and toes splaying out. In addition, large parts of the torso, groin, and neck would not have shown up at all, according to this research. Recently, new scientific tests conducted on the famous Shroud of Turin offered support to those hoping that it is indeed the cloth that was used to cover the body of Jesus when it was placed in the tomb after the crucifixion. One study revealed that the flax used to make the linen was grown in the Middle East. The results of these isotope tests provided new evidence that the shroud could be the actual garment that was used to cover the body of Christ following his crucifixion, and not a forgery that was created in medieval Europe as previously claimed by some. This was followed by a study that analyzed the blood stains on the Shroud of Turin and found them to be consistent with Jesus' experience before and during his crucifixion, with the subsequent removal of his body for burial. These most recent studies helped compound the findings of earlier studies conducted in 2012 and 2015, and all providing support for the shroud being genuine. That found the linen sheets probably does not date from the time of Jesus. In 2017, a team from the Hospital of University of Padua, Italy, led by Matteo Bevilacqua, conducted a forensic study of the imprint and found it was of a person who suffered and died in exactly the same manner that Christ did, as recorded in the Gospels. Now, something is amiss, right? Somebody's not telling the truth, because all these other people, which have hardcore evidence that this is not of a person, but rather at best a bas relief of someone. There was no blood found. Somebody's not telling the truth. Cicero Marius has said that when it comes to the unceasing debate about the shroud's provenance and how it is viewed, people generally fall into two camps in the debate, being for or against it being genuine, while he says that he sees it another way. On another side, those who think it is an authentic shroud of Jesus Christ, on the other, those who think it is a forgery. But I am inclined towards another approach, that it is in fact a work of Christian art, which managed to convey its intended message very successfully. It seems to me more like a non-verbal iconographic work that has very successfully served the purpose of the religious message contained within. Yes, what is the message? What is the purpose of this religious message? Pilgrimage, religion, Catholicism, all of this is the purpose of this message. So it should be rejected. This is a quote from John Calvin on the pieces of the cross during his time. Now let us consider how many relics of the true cross there are in the world. An account of those merely which I am acquainted would fill a whole volume. For there is not a church, from a cathedral to the most miserable abbey or parish church, that does not contain a piece of the supposed cross of Jesus. Large splinters of it are preserved in various places, as for instance in the Holy Chapel at Paris, whilst at Rome they show a crucifix of considerable size, made entirely, they say, from this wood. In short, if we were to collect all of these pieces of the true cross exhibited in various parts, they would form a whole ship's cargo. The gospel testifies that the cross should be borne by one single individual. In other words, there were so many. The relic business was huge, folks. The relic business was huge, and for a reason, because pilgrimages meant money, and it meant authority, and it meant, basically legitimacy. So you have plenty of documentation of Rome's forgeries, of Rome's shenanigans when it comes to forging documents and relics and things like that. And certainly there's a motive. Either way, these are just part of the false signs and wonders of the end of the age and the beast coming back into being marveled by the world in the resurrection of the Catholic Church. There's more and more false signs and wonders that are going to happen. So I'm giving you all of these so you are very sharp. You have your finger on the pulse. They're going to be pushing people into illogical, emotional, superstitious, and religious thinking. People are going to become more illogical, more emotional, more superstitious, and more religious as a result of all of the things we've just covered. Not just the shroud, but all of these false signs and wonders. Wonders can be political. They might be financial in nature. They might be spiritual. They might be supernatural. But you know that you're being attacked from all of these paradigms. They're all designed to deceive you, to distract you, to gaslight you, and to move the agenda closer and closer to the image of the beast and the kings of the earth giving their power to the beast. It's just bread and circuses. If you have the word of God and you know what you stand on, you cannot be deceived by these things, and you won't be. Even if you don't know all the peculiars of the shroud. You don't need to know the peculiars. You just need to know what the word of God says. The shroud is a fake. Rome is famous for its forgeries throughout the last however many 100 years, especially since the medieval ages. Also, there's a great incentive to have forgeries for pilgrimages and money. And of course, it legitimizes religion and reinforces religious thinking. This is the point. So is there an incentive to justify this thing? Of course. And even if it ends up being proven a fake, the effect of rallying everybody around this and getting people to talk and shaping culture is what they want. The first time the shroud ever was mentioned was in the 14th century. There's no documentation of it before that. That alone should tell you something. It's consistent. Carbon dating has showed that basically it's not old. It's old in some sense. It's from the 14th century, but it's not ancient from Jesus' time. The most recent 3D modeling shows that it could not have been on an actual body, but rather on a bas relief. There's no blood ever found. The chemical testing has been consistent with the carbon dating. The Bible says that there were multiple cloths and a separate one for the face. And Jesus likely did not have long feminine hair. So that's important. Also, the idea of a burial shroud being preserved for 2,000 years is absolute nonsense. It really is. With all the upheavals that have happened in the last 2,000 years, for something to be preserved for that long, it's nonsense. And God doesn't want you to be obsessed over physical things because he knows that you're going to make an idol out of it. like people do. People crawl on their knees to go and kiss the shroud or kiss the container of the shroud and offer roses to it and all of this idolatrous stuff. So God would not leave these physical things because you're not supposed to worship these physical things. You're supposed to put your attention on the spiritual so that when he does appear in the physical form to be worshiped, then you will be able to worship him physically. So either way, combine this with all the artificial intelligence of images on Jesus, on Mary, from the apparition of Juan Diego that now is being given even more life by all these technologies. Mary, the movie being released on Netflix, December 8th. Notre Dame, Our Lady, Mary, the Divine Feminine Resurrection being reborn. What do you get? Well, these are all signs of the coming reality, folks. These are all signs of their spiritual activities in the background, shaping the culture with various attention-focusing things, productions, false signs and wonders, spells to get you to invest in the coming religious reality that is upon us. There's also dialectics with Israel that are heating up, and the dispensationalists are frothing at the mouth because of the third temple. The Sanhedrin calling the Jews back, that's a false sign and wonder. The Jews are not the center of Bible prophecy. You know that by now. So this is a false sign and wonder designed to deceive people, to think that the Bible is being fulfilled. Of course, the Bible is being fulfilled, but not in the way people think. Israel is, again, a project of the papacy designed to deceive Protestants into believing a particular eschatological view, bringing about a charismatic renewal, NAR, all that stuff that we've talked about in my Great Delusion series. Another thing to ask yourself is this. What are they actually doing with all these, when all of these false signs and wonders are going about? When you're going, ooh, no, the shroud is real, no, the shroud is fake. When you're doing all that, what are they actually doing in the background? When the UFOs, quote unquote, are floating around the sky, what are they actually doing in the background that they're trying to hide? These things are usually designed to distract people. So that's an important point. Now, the final section of shenanigans, my gosh, so many shenanigans. The final section of this is the Digital Inquisition. I want to look at the usual technological pushes that are happening throughout the world to bring us to the reality of no buy, no sell, which we know awaits us. The beast will return to power, folks, and that means that we will go back to the Inquisition. The Inquisition will come, I shouldn't say we go back because it's always been around. The Inquisition will come to the forefront. The beast is just waiting to be able to sink its teeth into the people it really wants to eat. People are going to be imprisoned, killed, shut out from society for not participating. Confiscating, their stuff is going to be confiscated, just like the Inquisition. Same thing, no different. All of the comforts and advancements being made right now are just so that they can be tied to enforcing worship. Freedom cities, electric cars, everything's hooked up to the grid, the Internet of Things, robots, all these things are just designed to bring about the final delusion. So without further ado, let's look at a few examples. This is Ball and Order. China unveils an all-terrain spherical RoboCop to chase down, bludgeon, and catch criminals using net-launching cannons. Coming to an image of the beast near you. Let's see.
罗腾球形机器人能够在极端恶劣的条件下连续工作10小时以上，依托先进的人工智能技术，能够全自主地执行各类任务。当发现入侵者或者敌方目标时，能够以最快35公里每小时的速度攻击敌人。如果多名敌人四散逃窜，他能够在攻击敌人的同时，把逃窜者的方位发送给附近执勤的其他球形机器人协同抓捕。机器人能够承受高达4吨的冲击力量。机器人具有强大的跟踪、格斗、抓捕等战术能力。
Crazy. Look at him parading it in town. And of course, you think that this is just in China. That'll never come to the United States. Give it time. Not a lot of time, but give it time. It'll come. It's going to go around the whole world. They're not going to keep this. They're practicing it in China because they can. Remember, China has a purpose where they can practice all this stuff before they launch it somewhere else. To get it, China's just a testing ground, just like they had testing grounds with everything else. So this is the robo future that's coming. Robot enforcement, robot drones, robot animals watching your every move. Here's another robot video.
This is Clone Robotics' new humanoid robot that moves using water, electricity, and an artificial heart. Clone Alpha uses muscles powered by water pressure to move just like humans do. A 500-watt pump, as small as a human heart, powers the entire system by pumping water at 100 psi to supply hydraulic pressure to the entire muscular system. It even has all 206 bones found in the human body, connected by artificial tendons and ligaments. In demo videos from last year, the hands can be seen using household objects with human-like precision, and videos released last week demonstrate how far they've come. It's important to note, however, they have not shown a complete working version yet. Clone has announced that 279 robots will be available for pre-order in 2025, with pre-installed skills like memorizing your kitchen inventory, doing laundry, retrieving items, and several others. This is yet another humanoid robot to keep our eye on as the robotics race continues. To stay up to speed, check out the link in my bio and subscribe to my free daily newsletter. This is...
Combine this with the Tesla bots and everything else, people are going to get used to, oh my gosh, this sign and wonder of a slave. I can have a slave. I can have a slave to do my stuff, and it's not slavery because it's a robot. And pretty soon they're going to get used to this, and pretty soon they're going to launch the enforcement robots, the ones that are bigger and buffer and a little meaner, because people are used to it. So, it's okay to have that because, that makes sense. I have my house robot, and then we have our police robots. And then you're going to find yourself in one of those freedom cities, just like in RoboCop, with a giant mech walking around. You're out of curfew. It's Sunday. Go back in your room or you'll be annihilated. This is the future, folks. I mean, it sounds funny, a joke about it, but this is the future. Oh, here's another one. We're going to watch the first 3 minutes of this. Databases of all Christians. The digital yellow star mark to track Christians.
And then you hear of like all these groups creating databases of Christians, and that gets really concerning. Did you know, tangent, you ever hear this app, Hallow? Yeah. Amazing app.
Useful.
I just found out because people have been promoting it, and I don't know, I got really curious about it, and I started looking into the app. They are on a Series C. They've done a Series C. They've raised $156 million to date, and they paid Mark Wahlberg $20 million to promote their app, plus equity, which is supposed to be like this Christian prayer app. I don't know why you need $156 million to do that. You could have probably built that up for $2 million.
Probably.
156 million?
But if you want scale, you need to pay Mark Wahlberg $20 million to promote it.
And Peter Thiel is one of the early investors in it?
Of course.
Of course. Why is it that every time you talk about data collection, transhumanist Peter Thiel shows up? I feel like we say his name over and over and over again in the last few weeks.
He seems to be in the right spot at the right time for all of these deals.
Every single one of them.
He's deal flow magnet.
And you know that what he does is he takes data and he creates lists.
Yeah.
That's literally his business. He takes as much data as possible and uses AI and machine learning to create lists.
There's a lot of money in aggregation.
They have signed up 150 million Christians into this app.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have a database of everyone. And the guy that seems to be collecting lists on everybody now is an investor in the company that has this data.
So what you're saying is Peter Thiel now knows the prayers of 150 million people.
That's kind of weird, isn't it? By the way.
I mean...
Transhumanist Peter Thiel is what we call him.
Fair enough. But if you think about the context of what we're talking about, Peter Thiel, this is a perfect application to understand the religious needs of all of these this religious group, Christians. Like, you could run data on that and say, I'm making stuff up now, but 150 million, I know all their prayers. I know all their concerns. I know what they care about. I know what they're thinking about. And interestingly enough, the data tells us that, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. Or they're all putting their energy towards this. Or we can help kind of manipulate them this way. I mean, like, to collect data on a prayer app is like having a recorder in the Catholic Church when you're confessing your sins to the priest. Like ain't nobody need to know about that shit. Ain't nobody need to know that I'm praying about this. You know?
And the app started as a Catholic app. It is extremely Catholicism heavy, which is interesting. So now the Catholic Church probably has data on everybody. And Catholic Church, a little sketchy.
Now, do you remember when the Jesuits were basically the confessors of all the kings and queens and princes and princesses? And how, because of that, they knew all the dirty secrets? This is just another false sign and wonder in the modern age. 150 million people, all journaling their prayers and giving all of their deep, dark secrets. It's one giant Jesuit confessional room. Having the Hallow Prayer app and using it regularly is like having a Jesuit in your living room that you're talking to. And this is the point. And the Catholic Church has all of that data, so it knows exactly how to manipulate people and move the culture. They have their thumb right on what the culture is feeling, so they know exactly what to push to the left or to the right. With support like readers from you, no, I don't want to. Oh, gosh, this is so annoying. You know what we do when in this case? You copy the link. Here's what you do. You go to the Wayback Machine. You type in the link. You find the article. And let's see, where did it go? Somewhere. Here it is. We'll just go to this one. Snapshot. There you go. That's how you get around these stupid little paywalls. Not all the time. Sometimes they're too clever. But anyway. How Trump's mass deportation plan can use AI to extend immigration crackdown. Key points. The Department of Homeland Security allocated $5 million in its 2025 budget to open an AI office, and DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has called AI a transformative technology. Dark to light, folks. Dialectic, all this stuff with the immigration, they're not going to waste their time. They're just practicing to be able to, on a group that seems justified to practice on, so that they can use that technology to monitor you later. They're not going to kick these illegals out. They need the illegals. Plus, most of the illegals, if I'm not mistaken, are either Catholic or Pentecostal, which are going to be very useful for the coming thing. So they're not going to get rid of the illegals. This is just dialectics. AI-aided surveillance towers, robo-dogs, and facial recognition tools are all currently being used in Homeland Security in some capacity and could be ramped up even further in the mass deportation plan floated by President-elect Donald Trump. Now, what did I tell you? What you saw in China is coming to the rest of the world. At first, it's going to be in justified, quote-unquote justified, directions. Are you really going to be that naive to say, oh, they're just going to stop there. They're not going to use it on us. Come on now. You know your history by now. However, experts worry that increased use of AI by the DHS could lead to privacy and due process violations. You think? The Bible alone tells you that. There's going to be plenty of due process violations. Here's one from the Wall Street Journal. Trump's return heralds litigation peace for crypto. The president-elect's new SEC chair will likely withdraw from lawsuits aimed at forcing crypto to follow Wall Street rules. So crypto's getting a boost because of Trump. Regulators tried to police the crypto market using the strongest weapons they have. Now they are likely to lay down their arms. Oh, just in time. You know, Trump was all against Bitcoin and this whole digital nonsense. And now he's all for it. Now he wants to nationalize it. Now everybody's dropping their guns. Well, I guess that's what it is. We got to do crypto. Are you kidding me? Nonsense. But what does this have to do with Bible prophecy? Well, it has everything to do because the image of the beast is going to enforce the mark through no buy, no sell. That's what. So, conclusion. My goodness, not too many articles there, but they all certainly point to the reality that's coming. China is not alone in the world. We've seen that technology in many other places. China is testing it, but remember the Jesuits created China through Mao. Remember that. Remember they created China. They created China to be a sword against the USA as a rival, so that there would be justification for more dialectics, and of course a proving ground to basically try various things like they're trying now. Saudi Arabia also has robocops and droids. America has these robocops and droids and everything else. They're developing robots for people to have in their houses. The culture needs to get shaped to make these things seem, oh, this is just normal. It's normal to have a robot in your house. It's normal to have a robot patrolling the streets. It's normal to have, robots and AI and everything else. Pretty soon, they're going to have robots everywhere, and those will help to reinforce the system. Advances in robotics, creating artificial humanoids, the household robot, quote unquote, is the next level of control, folks. It is. Just like your phone was the next level of control, and credit cards were a next level of monitoring, this is just another step to heat up the water for the frog and boil it. The Tesla bot promises to make things easier, but it's like having Satan in your living room, man. You really think they're not going to have like control over these things? You think they're going to be fully programmable? There's not going to be no back door to hack into these things and monitor your life or turn them on you if the case comes to it? These things are basically just there to desensitize people with signs and wonders. Look, a slave. You can have a slave now. It's legal. And basically desensitize them so that you are used to this reality. And again, they're going to launch the bigger ones after the little ones are launched and they're comfortable in your house. These are just seductions to give you, to make you comfortable, to embrace more control, like freedom cities and AI surveillance and so on. So don't think for a second that they are going to be there for your own good. The Hallow app and like others like it, are Jesuit confessional booths in the medieval ages, but yet in the modern times and 1,000 times more effective. Because now they can control data and scan and use AI to figure out patterns and build a social profile. I mean, it's incredible what they can do. That's why, again, we're coming to the end. Where with everything going religious, it's going to be easier and easier to manipulate people because they're going to use apps like this and talk about what's important to them. The data is going to get aggregated, and emotions and spirituality and people's understanding of whatever is going to be tracked. And then okay, how religious are people? We need to get them more religious, or we need to do this or that. Let's do a little, how do they respond to this last movie? How do they do this? So on and so forth. Artificial intelligence is rising in everything. Computers, phones, policing, it's everywhere. The immigration thing is just a dialectic. It's a distraction. It's a distraction to bring you to the desired solution. The left opened the borders so that the right could say, oh, we need to use AI now and track everybody. It's for the good of the nation. But they work together. It's two hands playing themselves chess. They're just using the so-called immigrants as guinea pigs so they can practice, just like China's practicing for the ultimate thing. These things are shadows of the things to come, folks. You have to realize that. Most of what Trump promised with immigration is not going to happen, and he's constantly flip-flopping. One minute he says, oh, we need to find these people a purpose, and the other minute he's like, oh, we're going to deport all of them. Trump is duplicitous. He's not going to kick all these people out. It would be $1 trillion operation to hunt all these people out like rats and send them out. He will probably do some stuff to make it seem like he's doing it, but really they're practicing their AI technology on a sheep pen that they can do that for now. And eventually that sheep pen is going to get much bigger and include people like you, especially when they start building those freedom cities. Nothing new under the sun. Crypto is now suddenly the mainstream thing and everybody's all about it. Trump is all about it. The government's all about it. And again, Bitcoin has all these satanic things about it. So now you have a very clear lens on how to interpret current events. Hopefully you do. And I hope that you see, if you've watched all of this presentation up until this point, why studying history and relating it to scripture as a second witness is so important in understanding current events. It is so important. Otherwise, you can't see what there is to see. Now, I want to talk a little bit about how will Sunday be enforced? How is that going to happen? What does that reality look like? Many people have asked me this question, not realizing that it's actually very easy to enforce such a rule. Sunday laws have been enforced throughout history. Again, see my Sabbath number 8 episode for that. Today, we are more controlled than ever. And so it's very easy. The only problem is getting the culture to be religious again, going out of the atheistic paradigm. That's the only problem. It's not control. That's already there. The culture has to change, and then the enforcement is going to be easy because they already have the tools to do that. If you want to keep your thumb on the pulse of what's happening, then watch my Venerable Day of the Sun series, because that's going to be an ongoing thing that I do. But what are some examples of this enforcement? The following list is not an exhaustive list. It's just some things to jog your imagination so that you realize that this is not a conspiracy theory. It's not a ridiculous idea. It's not far-fetched, but it's actually very practical and real and on the horizon. If you own a brick and mortar business, you will be made to close on Sunday or you'll get fined. Tariffs, tax, you'll lose your business license. There'll be curfews of different kinds, such as social curfews, commuting curfews, online usage curfews. These things are already happening, folks. They use different people groups to practice them, like the kids being, I think was it Australia? They recently outlawed social media for their teens or something like that. Well, yeah, that's practice for the coming thing. Limits on driving or transportation through artificial intelligence. Maybe that might be linked to climate change goals. All cars are going electric anyway, so everything's being tied to the grid. You won't be able to drive your car without being tied to the grid. They might censor content that is pro-Sabbath or against Sunday. Just like I said with that news, those news clippings of the unvaccinated or the villains. That's coming to a neighborhood near you where unvaccinated is going to be replaced with Sabbath keeper. And those are going to be the problem people of the future because you're going to be advocating for breaking the law. That's the way they're going to get you. They're going to use AI to accuse people of breaking the local laws, the national laws, the federal laws, just like they did with COVID and the misinformation campaign against people. Remember when people were trying to share health information and that was getting censored? That's your blueprint, folks. COVID is your blueprint. You think that's not coming back? That's going to come back. But you know what the worst part is? Again, when it does come back, and those kind of things are happening against Sabbath keepers, most of the people are going to go with it. Most of the people are going to support such a thing. That's the sad part. YouTube already scans all of your videos and labels them and uses AI to transcode the audio into a text and then read that for content and basically figure out what you're saying. So yeah, they're going to track online purchases and activity with your social credit profile, with your credit cards, with your online banks. There'll be fines and punishment for buying things online out of curfew. If you buy them on Sunday and you do online commerce, then you might get fined or, restricted in some way. Credit cards and banks and financial institutions will limit how much you can spend on Sunday or deactivate certain types of purchases. Maybe have only emergency only type of situations. Payment apps track your activity already. So if you send them money, if you send money to somebody like a friend on a Sunday, or you make a purchase, Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, they'll all know and they'll tell you. They'll tell on you, I should say. Crypto apps will track your buying and selling, transferring money, economic activity left and right. Everything that you do is going to be tracked and it's on the blockchain forever. And because when you log into your crypto wallet, you have to KYC and put your fingerprint and do your password and do all this stuff, they know it's you. So they know. Phone companies will limit phone usage or track your phone usage. Online usage on Sundays. There'll initially probably be rewards for going to church on Sunday. Maybe we'll keep track of the people who don't go as a result of the system through things like the Hallow app. How far-fetched is it for them to be like, hey, Hallow now has a coupon, a QR code that you can scan when you go to your local church and you get, some sort of credit for the Hallow app. Maybe you get, a free membership or whatever they're going to come up with. And all the churches will be enrolled in it. Oh, yes, we honor Hallow QR codes. It's not that hard, folks. You just got to use your imagination. It's not that hard at all. They're going to offer rewards for going to church on Sunday and keep track of basically those who don't. And basically, at the same time, you're going to have propaganda against the Sabbath with pro-Sunday influencers like Candace Owens, like Nick Fuentes, movies, echo chambers, so on and so forth. Gee, these are just a few examples that I could come up with just in a little couple minutes of brainstorming using already existing technologies and already existing things that happen. So it's going to be very easy to enforce this thing, my friends. What is the harder part for them is to shape culture, and of course they're doing it very quickly, to get people out of this liberalistic mindset that they had to create in order to bring people here in the first place. That's the harder part. Enforcing the mark is not going to be hard at all. We already live in a situation where this can be enforced. Again, at first, it will probably start with pro-Sunday stuff, pro-Sunday and shaping culture with rewards, propaganda, family time, influencers, pro-Sunday. It's going to be very pro-Sunday. Then when there's mass adoption, right? There's an adoption curve. There's the early adopters, the mass adoption, and then the late adopters. Once the mass adoption is complete, then you're going to start seeing anti-Sabbath propaganda, anti-Sabbath laws, anti-Sabbath fining and persecution, and so on. Remember that the mark is on the head or on the hand, belief or actions. It's interesting to me that both liberalism and conservatism will worship the beast. These two dialectical schemes have to be integrated into one common religious mindset. And it's interesting because that is reflected in the fact that people are going to take it on the hand or the head. Liberals atheists, LGBTQ, pagans, whatever, all these are going to be on the hand. They're not necessarily going to believe this stuff, but they're, whatever, we'll go with this thing and we'll get benefits for it. The crazy fanatics who are frothing at the mouth and putting their bandages over the ear for Trump will take it on the head. It doesn't matter to the devil what you do, as long as you're part of the system. But the point is that the mark of the beast shows you that both sides of the dialectic are reconciled. Isn't that something? Now, people think this sounds crazy, but again, watch my Sabbath series number 8. You will see 2,000 years of history of Sunday laws and persecution. The 4th century Christians were warned not to Judaize or they would be kicked out of the church and called heretics. That tells you that they were celebrating the Sabbath, and that was a real thing. And of course, I document that quite a bit. The Roman Catholic Church killed many for not bowing down to its authority. The Pilgrims beat people and lashed them and fined them and punished them, put them in jail for not going to church, for sinning repeatedly in that particular department. They had curfews. The USA had blue laws. This is not a fairy tale, folks. It's not coming out of nowhere. It's not some superstition. It's not a Seventh-day Adventist thing. It is a historical, real thing, and the Bible warns you about it. So either you heed history and you learn from history so that you understand what's coming, or you are devoured when it repeats, because there is nothing new under the sun. So prepare mentally and learn the truth about the Sabbath. Help others also learn, because most people are going to be deceived. It will seem very good and noble and rational to do the thing on Sunday. Family time, all those warm, cuddly videos of the kids and family and everything else is going to be propped up right in your face. And compared to atheism, that's going to seem like a darn good deal. And that's exactly the point. Atheism was created to destroy the family so the beast can come and rescue the family with Sunday sacredness. The beast will advocate for the family because Sunday is the family day. It's much easier to persuade people if you have your hook into one of them, or two, or especially if the man of the house. Very much easy. And the beast knows this. That's why it's always been about the family. It's much harder to say no if your family is against you. So you're more likely to take the mark on your hand, even though maybe you have a family of people who took it on the head. Do you get it? This is why Jesus says he brings a sword to divide families against themselves. Because the truth is divisive, and you will, unfortunately, be divided against your own family. Unfortunately. And this is also why, at the end, people will take it on the hand. They're just taking it for the benefits, for the actions. They don't actually believe in it. So there's many that are going to be taking it on the hand, but there are also many that are going to be taking it on the head too. But the mark of the beast is necessary, folks. You have to understand, going back to God's sovereignty, that the mark of the beast is necessary. It is necessary. It sounds crazy that it's necessary. Yes, it is necessary. It's necessary to prove God's total and utter sovereignty over the plan of salvation. Without his gift of awareness and of the Holy Spirit, of a new life, you would stand zero chance. Donut hole, mark it. Zero chance against the devil and his maximum deceptive power with the delusion that is coming. You would stand no chance. That's why the mark of the beast is necessary, to reveal to you that if it wasn't for God giving you his spirit, his awareness, giving you discernment, that you would have no chance. And therefore you owe all of your salvation and life and discernment and everything that you know to God. It also separates the elect from the reprobate and allows the reprobate to enter the delusion so that they can be judged. So that when God reveals himself, he is revealed as merciful to the people who are saved and waiting for him, and also revealed as just to the people who rejected him and chose the mark of the beast. And it is rejection. It is rejection of Christ. This is the profound lesson that so many people don't realize because they have been deceived on the Sabbath. They have been deceived. They think that it's keeping the Sabbath is legalism. Oh, Jesus is my Sabbath. No, it's not. That's not true. Yes, Jesus is our rest. But Jesus is not a day. Jesus is God. Jesus did not become a day. Jesus is God. The Sabbath is the 4th commandment, and that commandment links the rest of the moral code to who is giving it to you. Because the snake has his own version of the 10 commandments, folks. And when you worship when you rest on the 7th day, because you can worship on any day of the week, when you rest on the 7th day, or on the first day of the week, the first day, Sunday. When you rest on Sunday and you follow the snake's instructions, you are acknowledging him as the creator, the redeemer, the provider. and therefore rejecting the one who created the world. The Bible tells us that Jesus created the world. That's in Ephesians 3 verse 9, in John 1 verse 10, and Hebrews 1 verse 2. You can look them all up. Jesus created the world. He's the creator. So when Yahweh says that you rest on the seventh day because in 6 days I created the earth and the heavens, and on the seventh day the Lord rested and felt refreshed. Therefore, when you rest, you align with the creator, the real creator, the true God, the only God. And if you refuse to rest on the seventh day, then you are rejecting the creator. Do you understand? The mark of the beast is not just, oh, I got to do this thing and avoid punishment. No, the mark of the beast is intimately tied to the gospel. And in the final generation, our generation, it will be the deciding factor. You'll be forced into making a decision. Do you reject Christ or do you accept Christ? Do you accept the lawgiver who is the creator, or do you accept the lawgiver who is the counterfeit, who gives you a counterfeit version of the law? And if you accept the counterfeit, you reject the creator, and you reject Jesus, you reject the gospel, even though you think you are embracing the truth. As Paul says, godlessness in the last days, many will have the appearance of godliness, but deny its power. And this is exactly what it is. The Sabbath is intimately connected to the Creator, and therefore, if you refuse the Sabbath, you refuse the Creator. It is a rejection of Christ. That's why the mark of the beast is a rejection of Jesus, and therefore the only option is for you to be destroyed. So we have to be wise with these things, my friends. We have to be wise, and we have to warn others before it is too late. Now, that wraps up our look at current events. I want to have one more section in this, and that's just some final thoughts, and that's the epilogue. So welcome to part 8, the epilogue.